Part 83. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 846. Lu Chang'an was very impressed by Yan Hui at that time. The female college students at that time were very beautiful and had a sense of the times. They had big eyes that were full of hope, and they were pure and elegant with pride. Just like Miss Hong Kong in the 1980s and 1990s, including mainland beauty pageants, every contestant who can reach the finals has her own unique facial features and temperament. It is absolutely impossible to be like after the 2010s, every contestant will be like the same plastic surgery hospital. Out of the assembly line products, Yan Qingcheng is not as beautiful as Yan Hui. Maybe it is polluted by this era, just kidding. No matter how strong the maternal genes are, if the living standards in childhood cannot keep up, and the child is malnourished, all aspects of growth will inevitably be affected. Maybe if Yan Qingcheng takes good care of herself, she can transform in the future. This is entirely possible. It's just that as a strong and independent girl, paying too much attention to her appearance is obviously disrespectful, so under normal circumstances, Lu Chang'an will not pay attention to Yan Qingcheng's appearance. Compared with other girls, what are the characteristics and disadvantages of Yan Qingcheng? What are the shortcomings? If your mother is really in poor health, you can come to me. I have a secret recipe handed down from our ancestors, Lu Chang'an said to Yan Qingcheng. What a filial child. Yan Qingcheng nodded. If a boy of the same age said something about ancestral secret recipes, Yan Qingcheng would probably not take it seriously, but Lu Chang'an was different. The highest level social elites that Yan Qingcheng has access to, such as Zhu Huntang and Qin Yinan, are all convinced by Lu Chang'an. If he doesn't take Lu Chang'an seriously, he would be really stupid. There is nothing wrong in classifying Zhu Huntang as a social elite. Zhu Huntang often lacks common sense in his performance, but, whether he is a social elite or not is not based on the common sense test. Just like many ugly country politicians, they not only lack common sense, but are even anti-intellectual, which does not prevent them from being the elite of the ugly country. Many idiots in China, especially public intellectuals, have great influence and have many fans. After long-term contact, Yan Qingcheng felt that no matter how little common sense Zhu Huntang lacked, she was cute and beautiful. She said stupid things and did stupid things, which made people think she was cute. As for the public knowledge, their appearance matched theirs. Your words and deeds will only make people feel disgusting or even scary. Famous Octagon Picture.jpg. Is your ancestral secret recipe made public after more than a month of ideological struggle and finally against the ancestors' decision? Yan Qingcheng was in a good mood and joked with Lu Chang'an. What? Lu Chang'an is an ordinary college youth, but he doesn't deliberately chase the latest memes. He doesn't understand the reason for the smile that blooms on Yan Qingcheng's face. Nothing. I saw an advertisement for a miracle doctor before. He made many advertisements for different health products. He decided to publish them after violating his ancestors. People were curious about how many ancestors he had. Yan Qingcheng explained with a smile. Lu Chang'an understood and nodded. Oh, I know that person, but my ancestral secret recipe cannot be disclosed. I also hope that my mother won't have to use your ancestral secret recipe. Yan Qingcheng is still relatively relaxed. Her mother's body is mostly malnourished, as well as physical discomfort caused by some mental and psychological stress. The most important thing is it's still conditioning. There shouldn't be any major problems. After chatting for a while, Yan Qingcheng went to the classroom first, and Lu Chang'an entered the carriage with the local products in his hand. After such a short while, Zhu Huntang actually fell asleep, and he pushed her awake without hesitation. What are you doing? I'm counting sheep. Zhu Huntang stood up angrily, grabbed Lu Chang'an's shoulders and pushed him. Thinking about how filial and considerate Yan Qingcheng was, Lu Chang'an became even more angry. He grabbed her shoulders with his backhand and pushed her again. Finally, he pressed her with one hand and squeezed her into the corner of the seat, shouting, "You're such a bad old man, you woke someone up and tortured them like this." Zhu Huntang was very aggrieved. If most people were provoked to anger, they would take the initiative at this time and could use their momentum to hit him. But Lu Chang'an didn't care at all, and still he bullied Zhu Huntang wantonly. Lu Chang'an was still holding souvenirs in his hand, so it was inconvenient for him to continue torturing her, so he said angrily, "You not only have to learn lessons from Yan Qingcheng, but you also have to learn from her filial piety, independence, and perseverance in fighting spirit." Zhu Huntang's dark and clear pupils rolled back and forth in his eye sockets, and after a while he said cautiously, "Are you really hooking up with my mother? So you are trying to build a feeling of fatherly love and daughterly filial piety first, and then let me adapt to the family environment in advance? Otherwise, when you talk, why do you always sound like you are preparing to be my stepfather?" It would be great if her astute mind could be used for business. Lu Chang'an took a long breath and said, "It's not like you don't know your mother's behavior. If I'm with her, I have to be on guard against her 24 hours a day. Slice me up." "That's not the case." Zhu Huntang laughed loudly. She just found it funny to hear Lu Chang'an's exaggeration. She really didn't think her mother would do this, because her mother was very good at mathematics and could count sheep. Of course she knew how to count sheep. "How dare you really try to slice Lu Chang'an into slices? If you can do it, you should have done it earlier." Lu Chang'an ignored her and found a video online to cache. After a while, the two people entered the classroom together. After the running in and observation last semester, in the eyes of most students, Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an had a wonderful sense of harmony, which made people believe that the intimate relationship between men and women may not necessarily be harmonious. It's all ambiguous. Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang were sitting in the back row. Qin's Haiqiang hesitated for a moment, but came over and sat next to Lu Chang'an. He still thinks Zhu Huntang is a beautiful girl who broke through the dimensional wall, but he no longer has the cowardly mentality at the beginning. At first, he didn't even dare to approach Zhu Huntang. "Chang'an, recently, Tong 11 always says that I am too kind and considerate of others, but I always feel that this is not a real compliment." Qin's Haiqiang could only consult Lu Chang'an. At first glance, Lu Chang'an is the holy beast of flowers. He has smelled the fragrance of the flowers, tasted the honey from the stamens, licked the morning dew on the petals, and may have even destroyed the flower branches and plowed the flower roots. What is unclear? The other two roommates, Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi, probably don't know as much about girls as Qin's Haiqiang. Of course this is not a compliment. Girls are jerks. They like to be dominated, manipulated, and dominated. Even if the decision you make without permission is wrong, they don't like you to consult them too much. Zhu Huntang rushed to say. "You know again." Lu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Huntang and said to Qin's Haiqiang, "What she said is right, almost like this, Tong 11 will say these things to you, which means that at least she is what Zhu Huntang said. This situation. What I said is correct. Then you still look at me," Zhu Huntang said angrily. She was not wearing her doll costume now, otherwise she would definitely shock him. Qin's Haiqiang nodded with some understanding. Recently, there were some things that he wanted to know about Tong 11's real thoughts and wanted to consider them more comprehensively. When he asked her more questions, she was really a little impatient. "Girls are often like sheep." Lu Chang'an continued. "Baa. Baa. Zhu Huntang shouted loudly. Lu Chang'an interrupted his conversation, took out his mobile phone, and showed Zhu Huntang the video he had just downloaded online. After reading it, her eyes were filled with tears, her cheeks were bulging, she stood up angrily, punched and kicked Lu Chang'an, then pulled up her small cushion, and walked to the front row to sit with Yan Qingcheng. Went. "Xiao Tang, what's wrong with you? Did Lu Chang'an bully you again?" Yan Qingcheng comforted in a gentle voice. It was not entirely because Zhu Huntang was his sponsor. Yan Qingcheng always refused to teach Zhu Huntang. I consciously assumed the mentality of the kindergarten aunt and coaxed her to get used to it. Lu Chang'an is a devil. He found a video of shaving a little sheep with electric clippers and showed it to me. The little sheep seemed to have its skin peeled off. I felt very connected. It feels like he has pulled out a layer of skin all over his body, Zhu Huntang said angrily. He had never seen a more hateful guy than this bad old man. When she was in the car, she saw him downloading something, and she didn't pay attention at the time. She never thought that he would suddenly release her and torture her. Counting sheep before going to bed tonight will bring up these horrific images. Will I be able to bleed carefree in the future? I feel like I have a psychological shadow, and when I scream, I have a fear that I will be skinned by him. There is an Easter egg chapter below demonstrating shaving wool, as well as follow-up questions about immortality. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 847. After class, Yan Qingcheng watched incomprehensibly as Zhu Huntang went to find Lu Chang'an again. She slowly moved closer to Lu Chang'an, and Lu Chang'an held her head down to keep her distance. As a result, she punched and kicked her in the air, and then held him. He put Lu Chang'an's palm on his head and pulled him into the car. Why did I bother to comfort her? There were cultural activities in Zhou Dongdong's school today. Lu Chang'an stopped by to pick her up after class. Zhu Huntang strongly requested to come with him, because after all, she was the protector of the saint of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect, so it was appropriate to pick up the saints after school. I will take revenge sooner or later after getting in the car, Zhu Huntang said angrily to Lu Chang'an, who was reading a parenting education book. Yes, Lu Chang'an had no objection. A gentleman takes revenge, and it is never too late in 10 years. Your name happens to have the word June in it, which fits this sentence. From now on, you will endure the humiliation, endure hardships, and carry out your plans unswervingly. Will it? Don't think that because you say so many idioms, I'm afraid of you. Zhu Huntang brought a ballpoint pen over aggressively, and then grabbed Lu Chang'an's hand. Lu Chang'an didn't try to make her afraid of him by speaking a lot of idioms. Besides, who would be afraid of others just because they use a lot of idioms? The uneducated Zhu Huntang unconsciously felt that she was at a disadvantage when she heard others using many idioms when speaking. Zhu Huntang first drew a knife on Lu Chang'an's wrist, then drew a few small circles to indicate bleeding, and then said triumphantly, I cut off your wrist and it is bleeding. Lu Chang'an didn't even look at her, but he deleted the parenting education book on his phone. These things were just like chicken soup for the soul. They used the same style of the era when the public right to speak was unquestionable, such as happy education, etc. Parents give up their jobs to watch their children grow up and things like that. I feel that domestic children are still more suitable for traditional education methods, maybe in personal practice, my own understanding and implementation methods are different, but I really want to say that there is a system method in this world that is better and has wider applicability. That doesn't exist either. Many people don't realize how much they weigh, but they first begin to completely deny the systematic education and learning methods they have received since childhood. In the end, I chose a set of education methods that I thought I was moved by my dedication, but the children I educated had serious psychological problems. This kind of education method is very undesirable. There was a serious problem with Zhu Huntang's education, and it was all Sumei's fault. If Zhu Huntang had been with her since she was a child, she would definitely not be as confused as she is now. Just like Zhou Dongdong, even if there is interference from mothers like Zhou Shuling, because he has followed Lu Chang'an to eat, drink and have fun under the sycamore tree for a long time, he has grown a lot now, evolving from a stupid child to a witty and brave primary school student. Your arm has been sliced into pieces by me. Zhu Huntang was patiently drawing knives one after another on Lu Chang'an's arm, each one representing a chop to Lu Chang'an once. Your mental victory method ranks among the top 10 people I have ever met. Even Aku can't compare to you, Lu Chang'an said with appreciation. She is so good. Zhu Huntang thought for a moment and realized that Lu Chang'an knew few people that he also knew, so he asked, who is Aku? Is he the boss of QQ? Or is he some beautiful girl who wants to compete with Qin Yanan for a big position? It's your mother. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but curse. Zhu Huntang continued to draw on Lu Chang'an's elbow, and had to cut off his entire arm to barely get a tenth of his revenge. While lowering his head to draw, he asked, what is my mother's nickname? I just said, you must have had a romantic relationship with my mother more than 10 or 20 years ago. It must have been you who started the chaos and finally gave up, so my mother would marry into the Zhu family with hatred, and step by step use conspiracy and trickery to control all the Zhu family's property. Who knew that she was just a woman after all, and after meeting you again, she fell into a trap that she was unable to extricate herself from. In the love network, she finally succumbed to your lustful power and allowed you to humiliate, destroy and kill her biological daughter wantonly. After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he felt a little emotional. It must be like this. You are so smart, Lu Chang'an sarcastically said. You are also killing wantonly. Since I am such an evil person, how did you survive in front of me? Because I am witty and brave. Zhu Huntang is not afraid of him. Since he is still alive, it means that he has actually fallen into the mental control of the little fairy, who has set a rage threshold for him. No matter what, he cannot really kill. Got her. Don't talk like Zhou Dongdong. I really think you are not as good as Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an pushed down his sleeves and let her continue drawing. He would have the big drawing arms of a social person. Zhu Huntang disagreed. Dongdong was a saint, and she was just a protector. Her status in the Zhou Fenglai sword sect was slightly lower, but she also had the status of a fairy. Zhou Dongdong was not a fairy. When the car arrived at the school gate, Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang got out of the car. Lu Xin, who had been hiding behind the dense shrubs in the flower bed, bit his own leash and came to Lu Chang'an's side, shaking his head. Normally, Lu Xin would arrive at the school gate long in advance to pick up Zhou Dongdong. In order not to scare other primary school students and passers-by, Lu Xin hid in the flower bed and remained motionless until he heard Zhou Dongdong calling his name before running out. Has it been modified by you using some kind of biotechnology? Zhu Huntang asked a little doubtfully. Which high-level Templar is Lu Xin next to him? In short, after seeing its strong appearance and big eyes that seemed to be able to talk, Zhu Huntang's impression was actually not very impressive. She had more dogs than dog farms. Compared with the other dog gatekeeper beside her, Lu Xin seemed to be a higher-level creature, which instantly made the doormaster, who spent a huge amount of money and was trained and raised by a dedicated person, feel weak and incompetent. One who is close to Zhu is red. A dog can evolve and improve itself by my side. You are not even as good as a dog. There is no progress at all, and the degradation is very obvious. Lu Chang'an hates that iron cannot become steel, and met Zhu Huntang for the first time. At that time, she was just self-righteous and arrogant. What about now? There are obvious animal signs of physical degeneration, such as bleeding all day long. Not really. After being threatened by Lu Chang'an today, I didn't call out all afternoon. Are you stupid? It's easy for a person who always gets 0 points in exams to make progress. He can study hard and get 10 points in the exam, which is a huge improvement. Zhu Huntang sneered. Stupid Lu Chang'an, but this time what about the person who got 100% in the first test? She can't even improve. I'm already in the most perfect state, there's no room for improvement at all, do you understand? Lu Chang'an was silent for a while, pointed to the car, and begged calmly, go back, please, don't appear in front of me, thank you. Zhu Huntang couldn't help laughing. She was indeed a fairy. Even Lu Chang'an had no choice but to ask for her mercy. But she didn't plan to go back. She wanted to play with Dong Dong and Dandan today to dispel the negative emotions caused by Yan Qingchen giving her extra lessons in the evening. At this time, Zhou Dongdong and Song Dazi ran out of the school gate hand in hand. Song Dazi ran too fast and fell down. Zhou Dongdong followed and took 2 steps forward. She originally stood firm, but when she saw Song Dazi falling, she quickly threw herself on the ground. "Why did you fall down too?" Song Dazi asked, clapping her hands. "If you were the only one wrestling, the classmates would laugh at you alone." Zhou Dongdong also clapped his hands, and then pulled Song Dazi to stand up. Zhou Dongdong helped Song Dazi pat the dust on her clothes and pants. "Go back and tell your mother that Zhou Dongdong accidentally took you to wrestle with her, and she won't scold you." "I don't want my mother to think you are careless." Song Dazi kissed Zhou Dongdong's dusty cheek. "We are good friends." Zhou Dongdong jumped up and down happily. He was much happier going to elementary school than kindergarten. At this time, Song Dazi's mother also got out of the car. After she greeted Zhou Dongdong, she saw Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang walking over. Song Dazi's mother had met Lu Chang'an before, but that time she was accompanied by a beautiful girl with a particularly tall figure, much taller than she is now. "Come to pick up Dongdong," Song Dazi's mother said to Lu Chang'an with a smile. "Yes, just now the 2 children were walking hand in hand and fell down together," Lu Chang'an also said with a smile. "The 2 of them have such a good relationship. They hold hands all the time except in class." Song Dazi's mother touched the heads of the 2 children. After the 2 parties said hello, each led one back to the car. Song Dazi's mother glanced at Zhou Dongdong skillfully climbing into the back seat of the tall Rolls-Royce Cullinan. She was a little confused about Zhou Dongdong's family situation. How is it like a superposition of quantum states? In the car, Zhu Huntang wanted to hold Zhou Dongdong and sit in her arms, but she was obviously overconfident and couldn't hold him, so she had to give up. Zhou Dongdong sat in Lu Chang'an's arms, and Lucine jumped into the car and lay at Lu Chang'an's feet. Zhu Huntang felt a little lonely, and Lu Chang'an was like a winner in life, with a cute little girl in his arms and a cute pet lying at his feet. Zhu Huntang was not convinced, but he had no choice but to open his hands and close them again, hugging his weak and beautiful self. "Brother Chang'an, I'm so angry today," Zhou Dongdong said as he touched Lucine's dog's head. "Why? If there's anything you're angry about, tell me to make Brother Chang'an happy." Lu Chang'an was depressed by Zhu Huntang's anger, and immediately expressed his desire to know. "Today the teacher asked us to tell a short story with surprise. I just said that when I went to the toilet, I suddenly felt hungry. I took the chocolate ball in my hand, and it fell into the pit. I was shocked," Zhou Dongdong said angrily. "The teacher just laughed and didn't praise me, and just let other children tell stories." Lu Chang'an pressed his face and turned to look at Zhu Huntang. After seeing Zhu Huntang's expression, he turned his head and looked at the other side. As a strong man in muscle control, Lu Chang'an did not smile. After hearing the little story about Zhou Dongdong being surprised in the toilet, Zhu Huntang suddenly became arrogant. From this comparison, it is obvious that the little fairy is more witty and brave than the child. "Dongdong, is this a story that happened to you?" Zhu Huntang asked. Zhou Dongdong nodded vigorously. "This teacher didn't praise you, so fairy sister will reward you." Zhu Huntang drove the refrigerator and took out a pound of collectible chocolate made by Zuji in the refrigerator and handed it to Zhou Dongdong. "Thank you fairy sister." Zhou Dongdong was so happy that he held all the chocolates in his arms. Fairy sister's chocolates are as precious as Sun Wukong's treasures, so they have to take them back and share them with everyone. "Eat a pound," Zhu Huntang said generously. "After eating 1 pound, come back with another pound. Save some and bring it to school tomorrow for Song Dazi to try too," Lu Chang'an reminded. Zhou Dongdong nodded vigorously and quickly put all the chocolates into his school bag. He had to make sure he couldn't see them, otherwise he would be hungry now. Back home, Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong Zuhuntang got off the car together. Bai Hui had just finished playing cards with Shang Guandandan and left the game talking and laughing. Hui Hui is still a little confused when playing cards. She lost a lot today, but luckily I helped her win back, Shang Guan said calmly. Since you won it back for her, have you returned it to her? Lu Chang'an asked enthusiastically. Shang Guandandan's big pupils swayed left and right in her eye sockets. She touched her thermos and took a sip of water. Then she walked straight back. Her eyes felt a little uncomfortable. She didn't see Lu Chang'an just now. If you lose at cards, you lose. Where can I pay back? What she means by helping me win back is that I didn't lose to anyone else, Bai Hui said angrily. This Lu Chang'an simply doesn't speak human words at all. During the Chinese New Year, I won her 3,000 yuan, and she took it back the next day. Lu Chang'an remembered this and felt that it affected his poker luck so much that he had stopped playing cards and mahjong recently. Zhu Huntang looked at Bai Hui with a smile. The little white pig finally got the idea, and it seemed that it was not far away when she would feed her clean skin into Lu Chang'an's mouth, and let Lu Chang'an go all over her body. Bai Hui felt a little embarrassed when Zhu Huntang laughed, so she had no choice but to say hello to Zhou Dongdong. Sister Bai, we are eating spider oysters tonight. You can eat with us, Zhou Dongdong enthusiastically invited. What are spider oysters? Bai Hui asked puzzledly. She had only eaten big oysters at the buffet before, so she associated the buffet with oysters, and spiders equaled the buffet, Lu Chang'an explained. Bai Hui touched Zhou Dongdong's head. It was great for Zhou Dongdong to meet Lu Chang'an. It was also great for her to meet Lu Chang'an. She looked up at Lu Chang'an and found that Lu Chang'an was also looking at her. There was a lot of tenderness in her eyes, and she smiled at him. Lu Chang'an also smiled. In the evening, we waited for Zhou Shuling to come back and started having an oyster feast. Zhu Huntang also ate here and said that all the oysters should be given to Lu Chang'an. The ones made in his own kitchen were too delicate and not as delicious as Lu Chang'an's rough ones. Zhou Dongdong drank the red wine that Shang Guan had poured out, and it took her a long time to return to normal. Then she found a lot of straws and connected them together, inserted them into a large bottle of Coke on the ground, and drank. Because she drank so hard, it passed through her nostrils. The normal operation of spraying out, there are no other surprises. After everyone had finished eating, Shang Guandandan asked Lu Chang'an to send Bai Hui home. Bai Hui pushed back several times, but seeing that Lu Chang'an didn't seem impatient or refused, he had no choice but to agree. After all, the girl went home alone at night. Home is still a bit dangerous. Hello everyone, my new book has been released for a month and has been updated to 180,000 words. The current plot has progressed to the protagonist Qin Dong being proposed to. The book is also called What Is It Like to Be Proposed to by the Mother of Your Childhood Sweetheart and Beautiful Girl at the Same Table. You can search for My Mom Takes Me to Cultivation to Immortality to read. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 848. The night view of the city in Junxia is inseparable from the noisy crowds. They sing stories from the past and taste the current tastes, such as a bowl of stinky tofu, a pot of crayfish, and strings of spicy squid, with cups in their hands. Chinese tea. There are traditional patterns of ladies on the teacups. The romance of many, many years ago blooms in such details, embellishing today's prosperous mood. Bai Fen ordered orchid latte, double cream and double pecan crumble, and Lu Chang'an ordered cranberry without adding anything. If he felt it was unfair, Bai Fen could give him some crushed pecans and cream. Unfortunately, he didn't feel that way. Bai Fen hesitantly took off a little of the cream that seemed a bit too much. What he had eaten today was not enough. It's a bit much, not to mention that when the butter is eaten from the mouth, it will directly turn into meat on the belly. Sorry to trouble you. Bai Hui glanced at Lu Chang'an next to him. He was walking carelessly as usual, and Bai Hui apologized as usual. After all, they are not boyfriend and girlfriend, and he does not think that sending her home is what Lu Chang'an should do. Probably because of this, every step seems to reduce the duration of this kind of treatment. Bai Hui heard An Nuan say it before. However, Lu Chang'an is very good at walking. He can accompany her from the School of Biology to the School of Business and Technology. It's so boring, why not take a car? Actually, this cup of cranberry is more like you. The cranberry tastes a little sour, just like you are. Sorry, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Bai Hui's eyes rolled, she pursed her lips, but couldn't help but said, then are you eating me? After saying this, Bai Hui turned his head away, a willful shyness blooming from the corner of his mouth, and his heart was pounding. He was getting bolder and bolder, which was a bit unimaginable. A year ago, I was so reserved and liked to keep my little white flower appearance. I probably didn't expect that one day I would say such things to him, right? It's a bit shameful, but more of an indescribable feeling, like, immersed in, looking forward to, and feeling excited all over the body. Lu Chang'an was a little angry. How could a girl tease a decent and traditional college student like him so casually? He decided to fight back, but instead of beating Bai Hui, he had to use words to fight back against the verbal harassment. The most unique health effect of cranberries is that they can effectively prevent urinary tract infections, so girls and middle-aged and elderly people should eat more of them. 80 to 90% of urinary tract infections are caused by E. coli, and the packs in cranberries is proanthocyanidins prevent bacteria from attaching to the skin of the urethra and bladder, thereby preventing infection. Bai Hui frowned. She teased him so cutely, and he actually mentioned these things. Can you prevent urinary tract infections? Lu Chang'an ate a piece of dried cranberry and looked at Bai Fen, who was overestimating her abilities. She would only increase the chance of urinary tract infections in men. Because for a girl like her, when a man is with her, the frequency of such things will definitely increase, and it is entirely possible that the songs will not stop every night. In this case, the chance of urinary tract infection will also increase. Such girls are not qualified to call themselves cranberries. Only those girls who make men cultivate their hearts and souls as sinking as death can call themselves cranberries. What's more, because cranberries are inconvenient to store and transport, Conswixing fruit farmers, who account for the vast majority of the world's output, will directly make cranberries into finished products. Lu Chang'an pointed to the dried cranberries. We often use various fresh fruits, such as cherries and peaches, to refer to girls because they are tender and juicy. But you want to use dried cranberries to refer to oneself. Do you want to say that other girls are suitable to be referred to as cherries or peaches, but you are in a shriveled and wrinkled state like dried cranberries? Sorry, I only eat fresh and tender ones, not shriveled ones. Bai Hui couldn't help but think of a saying, don't be afraid of gangsters knowing martial arts, just be afraid of gangsters being educated. For a man as knowledgeable and talented as Lu Chang'an, whenever he acts like a gangster, people are always stunned and feel that he is absolutely powerless to fight back. No matter what she says, he can quote from others, hide his counterattack in the superior display of knowledge and experience, attack the opponent in all directions, and the implicit contempt is, just you? You don't even have the qualifications to raise the corner of your mouth to show a bit of ridicule. I will make you feel that you are illiterate and you should hide your face in shame and wail and get out. Bai Hui has already endured such a blow, she must win today. She drank her orchid latte sullenly and walked around in circles. Lu Chang'an is the most laid back. He will not rush Bai Hui. Even if she stays here until dawn, he can still accompany her. If she needs to count her steps, he can even look at her pair of cute round toe shoes and become her human pedometer. Anyway, Bai Hui's feet are the same as her cousins, coming from the tradition of maternal genes, which is worthy of her. Call it a great toy, he just looks at it and doesn't play with it. He raised his head and glanced at Bai Hui, not knowing what she was doing. The girl's long hair was fluttering in the night wind, and then clinging to her neck and cheeks. Her pink skin was under Lu Chang'an's bright eyes. The flush gradually appeared. What was she thinking? What does she want to do? Lu Chang'an was suspicious. Not long after, Bai Hui waved and motioned for Lu Chang'an to follow. Lu Chang'an felt that she had evil intentions, so he turned around and left. Bai Hui ran for a few steps, feeling like he hadn't caught up with him. When she turned around, she found that he was walking towards his home. She quickly chased after him, grabbed his arm and ran into a nearby dark corridor. Remember this place? Bai Hui pointed to the area angrily. Couldn't you cooperate with her? Lu Chang'an looked at it and remembered, at that class reunion, you and I went out to buy food and met a couple who were in an ambiguous stage. They wanted to bully me, and I had to fight back, but I was kind-hearted and returned the favor. They acted as matchmakers and they thanked me very much and wanted to treat me to a drink, but I politely declined. What Lu Chang'an said is completely different from what Bai Hui remembers. They were just two ordinary male hooligans, and the one they bullied was Bai Fen. He didn't have to fight back, but helped Bai Hui vent his anger, beat others half to death, forced one of them to do gay things, and then took pictures and posted them on WeChat Moments. It was true that they wanted to treat Lu Chang'an to mangpo soup. But that's not important. The key is that this place is really remote. The last time Lu Chang'an did so many things here, no one interfered. Bai Hui just thought of a counter-attack strategy and decided to implement it here. She took out her phone, turned on the camera and flash, "Hold the phone for me." Lu Chang'an was confused, and he took his mobile phone and shined it at her. The flash was bright and dazzling in the dark corridor. It did not affect Lu Chang'an's vision, but he didn't pay attention to Bai Hui's red cheeks. She quickly pulled the collar forward, opened the half-cup bra with her fingers, and gave Lu Chang'an a look. With just one glance, Bai Hui quickly snatched the phone away, and then turned off the flash that had been on. The darkness swallowed up the flush on the girl's cheeks, but her eyes sparkled boldly and unbridled, like beautiful black pearls. "You idiot, the dried cranberries that have been picked and processed are shriveled, but the ripe cranberries that have not been picked are not in the state of fresh fruits." Bai Fen tried his best to be arrogant and cover up. Feeling ashamed and a little panicked, Lu Chang'an took a deep breath, but he was still a little short of breath. He pointed at Bai Fen and warned seriously, "I am a human now and cannot cover the sky like an animal. If you had gone hundreds of thousands of years earlier and you did this, I would directly I'll make you into sashimi here and eat you alive." It turned out that doing this did not cross his bottom line. Bai Hui's slight panic disappeared, but some shy pride arose in his heart. It turned out that he was more tolerant of her now. Even if she did this a little too much, it might bring some trouble to him. Came to worry, but he did not walk away. "Can you tell the difference between fresh cranberries and dried cranberries now?" Bai Hui took Lu Chang'an's arm, tried to look natural and pointed to the alley in front of the corridor. "Let's go this way." "No, I will never be able to look directly at the word cranberry from now on," Lu Chang'an said expressionlessly. Bai Hui is becoming more and more bold. Is this the result of his own connivance? Bai Hui's situation reminded him of Zhongqing. Zhongqing once got drunk and wanted to sleep with Lu Chang'an, but Lu Chang'an slapped him down. After such an experience, Zhongqing never did such a thing again, which meant that he could not be condoned and must be taught a lesson. Lu Chang'an decided that if she did something like this next time, he would run away while shouting indecency. Maybe she would be arrested by the police and her reputation would be discredited. She would change her mind and never do such hooliganism again. I ate too much tonight. I want to walk back and burn off the extra calories, Bai Hui said to herself. Although her excitement has not transferred yet, she wants to treat this kind of thing as normal. Infecting Lu Chang'an with this normal feeling, then if she does it again next time, he might think it is just a normal thing. Whatever you want, Lu Chang'an was just completing the task assigned by Shang Guandandan. It didn't matter whether he walked in circles in the square or walked in a straight line. Bai Hui's steps were a little brisk, and her palm only touched Lu Chang'an's arm slightly. This would make her holding Lu Chang'an's arm less conspicuous, and would not make him feel it clearly. She held it for a while and then put it down. When Lu Chang'an was talking seriously, he quietly put his arm around him. Anyway, after walking for a long time, when they were almost out of the alley, Lu Chang'an still didn't notice when she was holding his arm. Bai Hui finally felt relieved and kept holding onto him without letting go. She was finally sure that he didn't seem to mind. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 849. Juncha is built along the Xiangjiang River, split between east and west. The city of Hedong is prosperous and tourists gather here. There are many universities in Hexi and the educational atmosphere is strong. Wuyi Road starts from the train station and spans the north and south of the city. Juncha's earliest subway lines 1 and 2 were also built according to the east-west, north-south pattern. It is said that when we are about to graduate, several subway stations will be built in front of the school, Bai Hui said with some helplessness. At that time, Bai Hui could take line 1 in front of her home, transfer at Wuyi Square, and go directly to school. If Lu Chang'an was willing, he could also make an appointment to meet at Wuyi Square and go to school together. In the story of Bai Ziyi and Xiao Lu Chang'an, they must have done this kind of thing before, and they will do it every day. Thinking of this, Bai Hui laughed comfortably. She was going to buy a car anyway. If she happened to see him finishing get out of class when passing by the School of Biology, and she happened to be going to the city center on the way, she could give him a ride. I wonder if he will sit in the passenger seat? Generally speaking, the passenger seat is a reserved seat for the wife or girlfriend. When the roles are reversed, when a girl drives, does the passenger seat have such special requirements? Husband seat? Thinking like this, Bai Hui's heart was pounding, and she couldn't help but tighten her arms a little tighter on Lu Chang'an. She felt that buying a car was urgent and she would buy it tomorrow. The subway is a great invention. After the world's first subway was built in 1863, many countries are still using the subway system from a century ago. Dirty and the smell of urine have become symbols. When there was no mobile phone signal network coverage, reading books in the subway to pass the time became a superior humanistic phenomenon that was promoted. Until the builders from China helped them cover the network, the phenomenon of reading books in the subway also disappeared. Now, isn't it interesting? Bai Hui didn't find it interesting, but she thought that she had taken the subway with Lu Chang'an, but not the bus with him. The bus seems to be a place where stories can easily happen. Bai Hui originally planned to walk back, but it seemed like a good idea to ride the bus with him for a while first. What's more, there are many traffic lights and frequent traffic jams on this section of the road, so the time it takes to get back by car may not be much different than walking. After sitting for a while, he would find a reason to get off the car, continue walking around, and have some late-night snacks. Bai Hui felt that he was particularly smart at this time and had arranged many things at once. Lu Chang'an, who was arranged by Shang Guandandan to send Bai Hui home, seemed to obey her arrangement. Bai Hui felt that if she had just asked him to send her home, he might not be so well behaved. It seems that he has a good relationship with Shang Guandandan. The effect is immediate. No wonder Zhu Huntang had always asked her to spend her time in Shang Guandandan. Bai Hui regretted not listening to Zhu Huntang's advice earlier, as Zhu Huntang's friend, Bai Hui should have known that when Xiao Tang wasn't messing around, her advice and help were very effective. A bus that looked very crowded stopped at the stop. Bai Hui didn't care where it was going, and pulled Lu Chang'an on. The terminal of this bus line is the old crematorium and a funeral parlor. Lu Chang'an knew where this bus was going. Ah, Bai Hui was surprised. The bus lines in a big city are complicated and cover every corner of the city. Even a native of Juncha can't figure it out clearly. Bai Hui has never heard of it. Old crematoriums and stuff like that. It's not surprising that Lu Chang'an would know about it. Bai Hui even felt that if he dug 3 feet into the soil anywhere, he could smell it and talk about what it used to be and what happened there. His familiarity with Juncha gave Bai Hui the feeling that he knew him better than those old men and women who wandered around all day long. We won't sit until the end, Bai Hui said happily. Anyway, he would get off after sitting for a while. There were no seats in the car, so both of them were standing. A few more people came up from behind and squeezed Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an into the back of the car. Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an were standing very close. She wanted to hold Lu Chang'an's hand, but she felt that something would happen more easily when standing face to face than holding hands. For example, there was a sudden stop and she ran into his arms to let him feel it. The girl's beautiful white girl's tomb and the like. Because he talked about crematoriums, funeral parlors, etc., Bai Hui naturally thought of the word by Miss Grave, which he also taught. I just don't know when he will come to dig graves. Isn't he not familiar with tomb robbing? Is there any research? So Bai Hui blushed. If he really came to steal Miss Bai's grave, then bury him in Miss Bai's grave. Lu Chang'an watched the passengers looking at their mobile phones. The light of the mobile phones illuminated their faces, which were a bit white and blue. The carriage was very crowded, but silent. It felt like the atmosphere of telling a ghost story. The bus company's original signature line requires drivers to be very bold, and there is an unwritten rule that drivers cannot talk to passengers who get on the bus after 12 o'clock. They can only stop and wait for passengers to get on and off the bus according to the route regulations. If you see a waving passenger on the way, don't stop, Lu Chang'an said to Bai Hui. The pink on Bai Hui's face turned white, and she said in disbelief, Ben, I wouldn't stop waving at first, I could only park according to the stop. Sometimes even after 12 o'clock, this bus is full of people. Just like now, no one talks and it is very quiet. Lu Chang'an was talking while paying attention to his surroundings. There was a middle-aged man in the crowd. They were squeezing around and were leaning towards Bai Hui. You, don't scare me, I'm very courageous, Bai Hui said with teeth chattering. She dared to provoke even Lu Chang'an. Is she still afraid of ghosts? She felt that ghosts were worried when they saw Lu Chang'an. She was not afraid of Lu Chang'an, so of course she was not afraid of ghosts. I remember one time I was taking this bus in the middle of the night. When I got to the terminal, a group of passengers got off silently and lined up neatly towards the funeral parlor. I followed them, and a little girl suddenly held my hand. She said, "Brother, you haven't been burned yet, so you can't go to the funeral parlor." I looked at her and found that only her head was intact, but her body was completely burned and only the skeleton was left. Bai Hui screamed and threw herself into Lu Chang'an's arms. The crowd around him finally stopped being silent and looked over here one by one. Lu Chang'an nodded to everyone, and they all suddenly looked this way, which felt a bit scary. The middle-aged man who had been squeezing around took the opportunity to get close to Bai Hui. He just glanced at the tall Lu Chang'an, then turned around and squeezed in behind the other girl. "You're scaring me, wait a minute, I'll be so scared that I can't sleep at night, let's see if I don't keep sending messages to harass you." Bai Hui raised her head from Lu Chang'an's arms. The car was too crowded, and she threw herself on it. In Lu Chang'an's arms, the place where he was standing was immediately occupied by someone, and Bai Hui had no choice but to stay still in his arms. Lu Chang'an regretted telling the ghost story a little bit. He had been harassed by her just now in the alley, and now that she was making him feel warm and soft, it was inevitable that he would have no choice but to do anything. The two of them were crowded together. Bai Hui felt that his breath was filled with his scent. Gradually, her body felt a little soft, as if all the strength was accumulated on her toes. She couldn't help but stand on her toes, opened her lips slightly, and spit out the warm and slightly sweet breath was close to his neck. He didn't know whether to lower his head and take a deep breath, or to raise his head and hold his breath. The bus was swaying, and Bai Hui was in a panic. She felt her impulse, as if she had returned to the day she confessed her love. The people around her were so silent, but there were all kinds of noisy voices in her heart. Some voices were ninging her to hurry up, some voices reminded her to be rational, while others sounded timid, as if they were the real Bai Hui herself. "You get off first." The bus arrived at the stop again, Lu Chang'an said in Bai Hui's ear. Bai Hui was like a robot that had received instructions. She had already stepped out of the car before she could react. Then she turned around and saw a girl in the car screaming. Lu Chang'an pulled the middle-aged man behind the girl. Down. The bus driver didn't mind his own business. The passengers on the bus looked around for a few times, then lowered their heads in unison and continued looking at their mobile phones indifferently. "What are you doing?" The middle-aged man wanted to run away, but Lu Chang'an's hand was like an iron hoop. He looked at Lu Chang'an in a panic, his eyes looking around and looking around. "He was attracted to you just now and came close to you, but when he saw me, the flower protector, he gave up on you, a beautiful girl, and went to touch another girl," Lu Chang'an said to Wu Ziyi, who didn't know what was going on. Bai Hui said. "Many girls are like this. With a boy they can trust and feel safe around, their vigilance is basically reduced to zero. Don't mess with Hong Kong." "Do you have any evidence?" The middle-aged man became hardened at this time. "Why do some people always think that I want evidence? I don't have evidence. I'm not a policeman or a judge. Why do I want evidence? I'm just an enthusiastic person who teaches others. I just want to teach you how to practice yoga." Lu Chang'an shook his head disapprovingly. "Shake his head." He dragged the middle-aged man away from the riverside green landscape and stopped when he reached the riverside. "What kind of yoga practice?" the middle-aged man asked with trepidation while struggling. This young man was different from the nosy people he had encountered before. Those nosy people would either catch him and go to the police, or beat them directly. Only this young man made people confused and therefore more panicked. "Lu Chang'an, don't kill him." Bai Hui was also flustered. Although she had never seen Lu Chang'an kill anyone, she felt that it would not be a surprise if he killed someone casually. When the time comes, Bai Hui will become a grasshopper on a rope with him again. No, he will definitely say that she is the grasshopper on a rope, and he leads her with a rope. If he wanted to lead her with a rope at other times, in the bedroom or some other place, Bai Hui was a little willing, but it shouldn't be him who killed someone and then turned her into a grasshopper. "I won't kill him. You go and stand far away, with your back to us, playing with your phone, but don't leave my side," Lu Chang'an warned. "There are few people on this riverside, and Bai Hui is not very smart." He had to keep an eye on her, lest she fall into the river again. Almost every time Lu Chang'an and she approached the water, she would fall into the water. Once Lu Chang'an jumped into the water and almost died while saving others heroically. "Young man, don't act recklessly." The middle-aged man became more and more panicked when he saw Lu Chang'an's leisurely and calm posture. He had only seen this kind of people in movies. They were usually some kind of perverted murderer, a criminal with a high IQ, and so on. "Come, I'll teach you yoga. The joints are stiff. You don't usually exercise much. Let me help you mobilize your joints." "Yes, that's it, look, I stretched your joints and you became much more flexible. Try to bend down." "Yes, Bend down a little more, not bad, your head can reach your crotch, you are very talented. Lu Chang'an taught him yoga and greatly increased the flexibility of the middle-aged man through joint massage. For ordinary people to practice to this level, it would take several years of hard work. But who made him meet him? What about a good teacher like Lu Chang'an? From now on, when you are lustful, don't go to the bus to harm little girls. You see, you can solve problems by yourself as soon as you bend down and open your mouth. How good is it? Lu Chang'an urged him to practice once, but nothing happened. To embarrass him, he left to find Bai Hui. The middle-aged man lay exhausted on the ground, trembling all over, staring blankly at the waves of the river hitting the shore, and the taste of heather in his mouth was so nauseating. Just now I heard this young man telling a ghost story on the bus. I should have known that he was a real evil ghost. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 850. Lu Chang'an squatted by the river and washed his hands. He had just helped the man beat his bones and joints and straighten his meridians. But a person with a dirty heart would inevitably feel that he would be unclean if he touched him, so he had to wash his hands. Hand washing. The river water was unexpectedly clear, and many species of aquatic life were extinct, but the water quality was at least much better than it was 20 or 30 years ago. You can see many fine corpses of aquatic organisms on the shallow riverside, floating, settling, and being swallowed up by the environment where they grew and died, and re-entered the cycle of nature. Before the progress of natural science, there were stories of people entering hell and reincarnation after death. Is this a simple understanding of the cycle of material life? He looked back at the middle-aged man who was still vomiting on the beach, and then at Bai Hui who didn't look back. It was such a sharp contrast between ugliness and beauty. Lu Chang'an admitted that the night and the river breeze were not stunning, but they were just landscapes dotted with white fennel. Let's go. Lu Chang'an walked behind Bai Hui and said. What did you just do? Bai Hui was playing with her phone pretending to be calm, but she couldn't help but prick up her ears to listen. She didn't dare to look back now, for fear of seeing that the middle-aged man was no longer complete, with arms and legs missing. Do you know Jiao Man? Lu Chang'an kicked away the pebbles under his feet and walked towards the scenic path along the river bank. Bai Hui glanced at the river on the side. There were many myths and legends related to it, but the sharks and the Xiangjiang River seemed to have nothing to do with each other. I know, the mermaid is our mermaid, also called Quanqi. It is said that the mermaid was caught in Qin Shi Huang's imperial mausoleum to make an ever-bright lantern, and it is still burning now. Bai Hui said sympathetically, the ancient Book of Mountains and Seas, Su Shenji, date of the South China Sea, and the modern Kyushu series also have sharks. I'm talking about the dragon's dragon, Lu Chang'an said. Bai Hui was a little confused, then searched for it and pointed to the introduction on Baidu. Look, it says that the shark is connected to the dragon. Who told you to take things from Baidu as authoritative? Many people just search on Baidu, go to Popular Science, and try to argue. In fact, it is stupid. You must not do this. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Bai Hui was a little unconvinced, but she also knew that what he said was right. Just like the Bai girl's grave he mentioned last time, only the girl's grave could be found on Baidu, which had nothing to do with what he meant, and what he said a poem praising the white fennel and the bear cannot be found. A search engine that focuses on Chinese has been in use for so many years, but it is so useless. It is really rubbish. No wonder many companies can only take domestic dividends and cannot start any business once they go abroad. After all, they are just pigs in the spotlight and rubbish. Jiao Man, next to the insect, next to the shark, next to the word fish. If you think about it carefully, you will know that these cannot be the same creature. Lu Chang'an continued. Bai Hui frowned, thought about it carefully, and still wanted to refute him. In ancient times, animals were divided into 5 categories, called 5 insects. Fish, lizards, snakes, etc. are all scale insects. Their leader is the dragon, that is, you mentioned the dragon next to the insect. Then why can't the fish have sex with the insect? Lu Chang'an is very patient now and does not intend to classify Bai Hui into the ranks of Gongjing for the time being, not to mention that Gongjing, who is so good looking and has such a good looking figure, is a Gongjing who can reason with her instead of talking about physics. What you said proves that insect sex and fish sex cannot be used interchangeably, because the sharks of fish sex are just one kind of Jiao people of insect sex. Lu Chang'an was not surprised. Bai Hui had no insight after all. There are so many magical animals in the classic of mountains and seas, how many have she seen? Modern people are generally very strange. The Jiao men I am talking about are a more common type, common in rivers and lakes. They are completely different from the tragic and beautiful Jiao men in the literary works you have read. The Jiao men among insects are ferocious. They are violent and have a promiscuous nature. In ancient stories, the Hebo and the like who asked young girls to be sacrificed were mostly Jiao people. Lu Chang'an looked at Bai Hui and then at the Xiangjiang River. If there is a Jiao man in the Xiangjiang River, a girl like you will probably be dragged into the river by him. Ah, is it because I'm white and fragrant, like a cute little white pig, so he wants to eat me? Bai Hui said a little nervously and frightened. Just because he was nervous and frightened, he naturally pulled away again. Caught his arm. The girl's timid behavior at this time was to hold his arm and press her chest against him, suppressing her pounding heartbeat in order to feel a little more at ease. Lu Chang'an looked at her strangely. Now Bai Hui is becoming more and more confident. Looking at this pretentious performance, she is not afraid of Lu Chang'an exposing and attacking her in person. Forget it, Lu Chang'an is a kind-hearted person, and it is rare for him to gain confidence. This is not a bad thing. Of course the Jiao man will drag you into the river to be his wife and let you give birth to a litter of little Jiao man. Lu Chang'an continued, the Jiao man is very promiscuous by nature. When there is a woman, he hums with her, and when there is no woman, he hums with himself, because since his name has Jiao in it, he naturally has similarities with the physical attributes of those bugs. He bends his body. It is also their daily hobby to bite the thing they own and have sex with it. Bai Anis was stunned. There is such a creature. There's nothing strange. It's not just ancient mythical creatures that do this. Now if you go to the zoo and see monkeys, orangutans, they will do the same thing. Lu Chang'an was very fortunate to take Zhou Dongdong to the zoo. At that time, those primates did not do this. Bai Fen's cheeks were red. In fact, she had seen some monkeys in the zoo peeing into its own mouth, but most of these monkeys were single, and there was nothing they could do. Bai Hui lowered her head and glanced randomly, then looked around in the distance, and closed her mouth tightly. She couldn't think about these things, her mouth could only be used to eat delicious food. That man just now, I just turned him into a dragon. I hope he can solve the problem by himself in the future. Lu Chang'an finally told Bai Hui what he had done. Bai Hui finally understood and looked at Lu Chang'an in a panic. From his eyes, he confirmed that he understood correctly. He couldn't help but press his chest and retching. Lu Chang'an is such a pervert. But even though he was a pervert, why was he still unwilling to let go of his arm, instead holding it tightly? Maybe I was trained well by him and couldn't resist him. In other words, no matter how shameless I act now, or how shameless I think of pictures, it's all because of him, not her problem. Huh, Bai Hui breathed a sigh of relief. The two chatted all the way, walked to the bus stop and sat back in the opposite direction, then took another bus and got off at the gate of Bai Hui's community. Thank you for your hard work. Bai Hui put his hands in his sleeves and held them tightly. Is he about to go back? He sent him off like this, so he had to thank him anyway. For example, let him go upstairs for a cup of tea or something. No, he likes to drink orange juice. Otherwise, how bad would it be to just let him go back like this? Or maybe treat him to dinner another day or something. That would be the reason for the next date. No, the next meeting. But an invitation is worse than a chance encounter. Who knows when it will happen another day? What if he has no time lately, but he shouldn't be busy tonight? Well, goodbye, go to bed early. Lu Chang'an nodded, turned around and prepared to leave. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an stopped. I have too much orange juice at home and I can't finish it. You, help me drink some, Bai Hui said hesitantly. This should be considered a valid reason. The last time he came to her house, her mother was I asked him to drink orange juice. He had seen a lot of orange juice in the refrigerator, right? Then does your reason feel sufficient? Okay, is your mother at home? Lu Chang'an asked. My mother is not at home, Bai Hui said quickly. My parents went to a relative's house to play mahjong. They played mahjong all night long. Why did he ask this question? Bai Hui was a little nervous. She flirted with him in the alley today. It is said that boys will have some desire in their bodies at this time, and they will be ready to act and often lose their minds. Was he planning to do something to her while her mother was not at home? But Bai Hui felt that he would not be like this, so he confessed the situation with great trust. After all, it would be too much to lie to him that his mother was at home and guard against his friends like this. Sorry, I still want to chat with your mother. I really like your mother, she is silly and cute, Lu Chang'an said, slightly disappointed. You actually comment on your elders like this? Bai Hui criticized Lu Chang'an with wide eyes, then tugged on his sleeves and asked him to follow her upstairs. Walking to the door of Bai Hui's house, Bai Hui had just pressed his fingerprints when the door was already opened. It turned out to be a relative of Bai Hui. He greeted Bai Hui and then looked at Lu Chang'an up and down for several times before leaving with a smile. Dad, Mom, cousin, why are you at home? Didn't you go to my second uncle's house to play cards? Bai Hui asked strangely, and then introduced to his father Bai Shengtian with some embarrassment. He is my high school classmate, and he is now university alumnus, Lu Chang'an. Hello, Uncle, Lu Chang'an greeted Bai Shengtian, and Bai Shengtian smiled and shook hands with Lu Chang'an. Did you know that when we went to my second uncle's house to play cards, we brought a boy home? Zhongqing smiled slightly and said meaningfully. Cousin, what are you talking about? Today, it's too late today. Lu Chang'an sent me home. I asked him to come up and have something to drink before going back. Bai Hui blushed and explained quickly. The smiles on her parents' faces were too ambiguous. It was as if Lu Chang'an was her boyfriend. This also made her feel even more guilty and hot-tempered. It was not like her mother and cousin didn't know that Lu Chang'an had a girlfriend, but she still took him home. She didn't know what they would think. Come in, Xiao Lu, can you play mahjong? We happen to be short of one. Bai Shengtian pointed at the mahjong table and said. I can win casually, right? You won't let me go if I lose, right? Lu Chang'an rubbed his hands. He hadn't played mahjong for a while. He killed all the Bai family today. Come here and see how much you can win, Bai Shengtian said proudly. Ah, you don't know how to play the partnership card, do you? Bai Hui said worriedly. Mom, Dad, and cousin, what if they join forces to bully Lu Chang'an? Then help him look at the cards. Zhongqing smiled and sat down first. When a girl starts to turn her elbows outward, it means that even 10 cows cannot pull her back. There are also big chapters during the day. Everyone supports my mom takes me to cultivate immortality, which has more than 300,000 words. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 851. After rereading the chapter continuation chapter 60, by Fen's mother, you will have a better reading experience bonus for this chapter. The 3 missing cards are finally together. For the old mahjong players, here refers to the mahjong enthusiasts with many years of experience, not the old fans of mahjong. It is just a matter of going out with the leader, with the troops, horses, food, and grass ready, waiting for their big hand. With one swing, it feels the same as when you kill all directions with great vigor and arrogance. Auntie, let's change places. Zhongqing went to take a sip of water. When he came back, he found that he was sitting down, so he asked to change places with Bai Hui's mother. Bai Hui's mother sat under Bai Shengtian's hand and immediately expressed her dissatisfaction. Are you still afraid that your uncle will let me go? She only kicked Bai Shengtian 5 times tonight. Bai Shengtian understood her meaning only once, and that time she didn't mess up, which made her a little depressed. My uncle is not very good at playing cards. If you ask him to give you some water, he won't understand what you want. It's better for you to sit on top of him and give him some water. Zhongqing walked over with a smile, sat down directly, and gave Bai Hui's mother the water. Squeeze away. Bai Hui's mother won't give Bai Shengtian any slack. She just wants to cheat on her own, and she doesn't want to win money as a team, so just change. Ching ching, don't look down on me. You just won $1,000 and your tail is raised? I only showed my strength in the second half, Bai Shengtian said. Just you, Bai Hui's mother snorted. She always got mad when she played cards with him and wouldn't even look at him. Cousin, why do you want to change seats? Bai Hui moved a chair and sat next to Lu Chang'an, placing his hands between his legs and clamping them tightly, like a well-behaved baby. I heard the boss say that she used to play cards with Lu Chang'an, and she couldn't get a single useful card from him. Of course, the boss Zhongqing was talking about was not Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang plays mahjong just like she does in Landlords. She mainly focuses on peeking, stealing cards, and cheating. Her level is much lower than that of her mother, Mrs. Third. The third wife is Sumei, who was blessed by Qinyanan to marry Penguin. More than 100 years ago, almost all the young ladies in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai were proficient in mahjong. Even with such a level, Sumei didn't want to play cards with Lu Chang'an unless he was willing to play more casually. So evil, Bai Hui's mother was a little nervous and didn't believe it. Mom, don't be afraid. It's not that powerful. If you can't do it anymore, I'll take your place. Bai Hui is very confident. It's not like she and Miao Yingying haven't played cards with Lu Chang'an before, playing landlord and running beard at Gao Dui's house. Yes, as long as she and Miao Yingying follow the rules, it will still be a back-and-forth fight with each other winning or losing. Lu Chang'an turned his head and glanced at Bai Hui. This was a typical example of someone who had no B numbers. Just have fun, I'll use 30% of my skills. Lu Chang'an gave Bai Hui's mother a gentle smile. Bai Hui's mother felt a little calmer. She was actually a little worried about the relationship between Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an. After all, Bai Hui's mother also knew that Lu Chang'an had a girlfriend. But first of all, Lu Chang'an made people feel very good, and it was okay to remain friends with Bai Hui. Secondly, when there was a lack of one, not to mention the one who had a girlfriend, what about the one who had a wife? Even if Bai Shengtian brings a girl back, he can beat him first and then kill him. After the card game is over, I will talk to Lu Chang'an again. If I win, I will scold him less. If I lose, I will drive him away. If he comes back with his daughter, he still dares to beat Bai Hui's mother. Basically, he is stupid and bad. He will not be allowed to interact with Bai Hui in the future. Boss Lu is on the court. How about playing bigger? Zhongqing held a mahjong tile between his two fingers, rubbing it and turning it, showing extremely superb skills. He looked like a veteran at first glance. Boss Lu? Isn't he classmate Hui Hui? Bai Shengtian asked strangely. Bai Hui quickly explained, Lu Chang'an opened a rice noodle shop with others, and is now preparing to open a second one. That's quite busy, isn't it? To open a rice noodle shop, you have to get up early and stay late at night. Bai Hui's mother couldn't help feeling a little distressed. After all, she was still a child, which was so rare. My shop is in a shopping mall, not a stall. He has set up a stall before, but now his business has become bigger, Bai Hui said with some pride. It's over, it's over. Listening to Bai Hui's tone, Bai Hui's mother seems that her daughter is ready to move forward on the road of being a mistress without looking back. Why are you so proud? In other people's stores, maybe your girlfriend is called the boss lady, and it has nothing to do with you. Which mall is it open in? It can't be the mall where Zhongqing works, right? Bai Shengtian asked, next time we go to support it. It's that shopping mall. The name of the store is Red Soup Spicy Rooster Rice Noodles. Zhongqing didn't explain that he didn't work in that shopping mall. He could only say that the management of that shopping mall was within his scope of work. We have eaten there. I said that we were going to have a big meal that day, but Baifan had to drag us to have a meal of rice noodles. Baifan's mother reminisced and nodded in approval. It does taste good, especially the chicken legs and meat. Steamed stuffed bun. Bai Hui blushed with embarrassment. She should have made eye contact with Lu Chang'an at this time. She raised her head and found that Lu Chang'an was looking at her mother seriously as she spoke. So she pushed the mahjong on the table and said, "Stop talking, hurry up, let's fight, it will be dawn soon." Southeast, Northwest, Red, Get Rich, 369-0000, 258 bars, 147 tubes, flowers on the bars, fishing for the moon from the bottom of the sea. The leopard gives away the golden flowers, and I collect the money from others. Zhongqing knew that Lu Chang'an was a good mahjong player, but after all, it was his first time playing mahjong with him. While playing the cards carefully, he observed Bai Hui's expression to determine whether the cards he took out should be played. Bai Hui sat between Lu Chang'an and her mother. She looked at both sides, but mainly cheered Lu Chang'an, shaking her head repeatedly to signal Lu Chang'an not to hit the card in his hand. This made Bai Hui's mother very depressed, because Lu Chang'an really never gave her a card, but she couldn't be sure whether it was Lu Chang'an's own intention or Bai Hui's instigation. After playing 2 rounds, Zhongqing discovered that his aunt and uncle, who he thought were average at poker, had won the most. Lu Chang'an neither lost nor won, and Zhongqing was the only one who kept losing. Although there was no evidence, Zhongqing felt that this was Lu Chang'an controlling the situation, and couldn't help but feel a little angry. She had already sent him pajama photos, how could he do this to her? Generally speaking, even if there is no real ambiguous relationship between two people, if a man sees a woman's sexy pajama photos, he should be gentler to her, be more intimate with her, or at least give her some sex. The game ended in the middle of the night. Zhongqing regained some of his money, but overall he still lost a lot. Lu Chang'an did not lose or win. Bai Hui's mother and Bai Shengtian won a lot, and the couple laughed happily. "Xiao Lu, it's already so late. Don't go back today. Let sisters Bai Hui and Qing sleep in the same room." "You can sleep in the guest room." Bai Hui's mother pulled Lu Chang'an and left without wanting to let him go, smiling happily to welcome the guest. "The guest room has new sheets and quilts. Ask Bai Hui to get you a set of toiletries." "Yeah, the weather is freezing now. I'll drive you back tomorrow." "It's hard to take a taxi at this time." Bai Shengtian was even more enthusiastic. It was the first time in his life that he had won so much money. He would spend the rest of his life on mahjong. "The bragging depends entirely on my confidence tonight." The sleepy Bai Hui wanted to say something else, but Lu Chang'an politely refused, shaking his head and saying, "The cranberries I saw today are actually not normal. They may be swollen and bigger than usual. Please treat me to a drink next time, it's not bad." Bai Hui blushed instantly and lost all sleepiness. What did this person mean? Was he mocking her for being unattractive, or was he teasing her because he noticed that her body had undergone subtle changes due to some impulsive emotions? What does it mean to invite him to drink Menuelenchen again? Does he want to drink milk tea? He didn't seem to be such a straightforward person. Bai Hui was so confused for a moment that he didn't even notice that his cousin took the initiative to send Lu Chang'an downstairs. Zhongqing put on a small vest, walked into the elevator with Lu Chang'an, and asked with some suspicion, "There seems to be something wrong with what you just said to Bai Hui. She's been provoking me lately, I'll fight back, lest she think I can't deal with her. Lu Chang'an is actually not interesting, but these girls are like that. She can think up 7 or 8 meanings for you with an ordinary sentence, and even more. What's more, Lu Chang'an's speech was so specious." Zhongqing didn't ask any more questions, just reached out and dusted the non-existent dust on his arms. "Actually, I quite hope that you and Bai Hui will be together." Huh? Lu Chang'an thought about it for a while, nodded slightly, and understood what she meant. If Bai Hui and I are together, it means that 1 can make 2, and 2 can make 3. I can be with Bai Hui if we are together, you won't have any problem with that many. Zhongqing's still raised palm froze somewhat stiffly. It didn't look like he was going to help Lu Chang'an dust him off, but more like hitting him. So he let it fall down, but he didn't hit anyone. He just held his hand nervously. Arm. She originally just wanted to say I hope he and Bai Hui are together, and then if he was confused or asked why, she would smile meaningfully, or turn her head and ignore her, just making such a thoughtful gesture. Who knew he could see through it? Sure enough, he was indeed a figure that even the third wife could do nothing to do to him. Not only did he have outstanding abilities in all aspects, but even if he was playing tricks, he would outshine the third wife. Zhongqing couldn't help but laugh at himself and feel ashamed. What did he think of such an outstanding person back then? Really stupid. Actually, there is still a problem. With Sumei's personality, she can tolerate even Bai Hui, but if it is you, she will feel that you have betrayed her. Even if she promises you and hopes that she will not be there during Junqi's time, you have to come and do whatever you want with me instead of her. Maybe she will settle the score with you in the end. Lu Chang'an actually liked girls like Zhongqing, so he kindly reminded her that Sumei was somewhat moody and heroic. The blush on Zhongqing's cheeks dissipated. She was really not sure that the third wife wouldn't be like this, but Lu Chang'an seemed to see through the third wife. "Do you think this is just the third wife's task?" Zhongqing bent his fingers, and with a little force, he could feel the heat of his skin under his thin coat. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and his eyes were filled with sparkles. "Bai Fen, will I like you? I won't? It's common for sisters and cousins to share the same husband. That night I said I wanted to sleep with you. Did you really think it was a drunken talk? A drunken talk is either nonsense or the truth. It's normal to like me. Women who often come into contact with me will fall in love with me. Even if they are elders, they will feel that I was born before you were born, and you are old after you were born." Lu Chang'an has seen too much and doesn't think so. Although he knew that he was confident and qualified to say such things, he almost turned a deaf ear to Zhongqing's true and false confessions. Zhongqing pressed her chest angrily. She felt that she was no longer a teenager after all. Women in their 20s would start to worry about sagging, so they always wore a bra, which made her feel much more uncomfortable when she was angry than usual. She had seen with her own eyes that Qin Yinan's chest buttons and bra were broken when Zhu Huntang was so angry that she chose a bra that was stronger. Now she had to reach out and unbutton her bra to feel more comfortable. When the elevator reached the bottom floor, Zhongqing still had something to say, so he took Lu Chang'an's arm and said angrily, "Then you are the scumbag who knows it all but doesn't refuse or accept it." Lu Chang'an shook his head. "The posture is the same, but the mentality is completely different. I don't know how to explain it to you. In short, the real scumbag has now embraced you in his arms and stretched out his arms. You explain it in front of others. Can a scumbag resist bra buttons? Fortunately, it's me. I suddenly remembered that Professor Lu wanted me to help her make a dress for her using the leftover materials from along the river during the Qingming festival, maybe a bikini or something. With that said, Lu Chang'an walked out of the elevator on his own. Zhongqing still held his arm and said, I understand. If you like something in your heart, you will respond. Like Bai Hui, you even deliberately controlled the game tonight to make my uncle and aunt happy. I am like this, you didn't feel anything, so you became the victim of your targeting. I lost 30,000 yuan tonight, you can really do it? Aren't you the one who proposed a bigger fight? If you hadn't made the suggestion, I would have only made you lose 3,000 yuan. You want to fight so big, do you blame me? Lu Chang'an found it funny. Women are really unreasonable, but like Zhongqing, a working woman who is usually smart, capable, and rational, is quite cute when she occasionally messes around. The main reason is that he is good looking, has a good figure, and has a pair of small feet that can rival Sume. Lu Chang'an has a sharp eye, and he has already discovered this not long after he met Zhongqing. Zhongqing thought about it and felt that this was the truth, but she felt it was wrong. However, she didn't care how much money she lost and changed the subject. By the way, I met you and Dong Dong in the bookstore a few days ago. Dong Dong is so cute. No, what I want to say is that at that time you said that if I had any problems with my studies, I could ask you for help, right? Lu Chang'an nodded and stood at the door of the elevator talking to her. The night in March was still very cold, but there was no need to worry about Zhongqing's physical condition. When he went to have barbecue with her before, she said that she never had to worry about drinking too much. Alcohol hurts the liver, because the third wife gave her some healthcare products that were very effective. Most of them are laboratory products designed to improve physical fitness. I want to learn Fangzongshu now, can you teach me? After Zhongqing finished speaking, she raised her hands and put them on his shoulders. She gritted her teeth gently and looked at him sideways, just as she said what she said when she was drunk was mostly true. She felt like she was a little drunk now. As a mature woman, when faced with a man like Lu Chang'an, sometimes she really suspects that she is affected by the season. Spring is the time when the lower abdomen becomes sore and hot again. Just kidding. Zhongqing couldn't help but laugh when he saw the dazed expression on his face when he saw the confusing behavior. Ding dong. The elevator door opened and Bai Hui walked out, staring blankly at Zhongqing as he put his hands on Lu Chang'an's shoulders. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 852. Bai Hui smiled, and she remembered a sentence, the clown turned out to be myself. It should have been discovered long ago. I still remember that I first discovered that my cousin knew Lu Chang'an in Zhao Wuqiang's ward. The police were present to mediate the compensation dispute between Lu Chang'an and Zhao Wuqiang's mother Quan Loxia. Of course, Lu Chang'an did not lose a penny and was rewarded for his bravery. From that time on, his relationship with Lu Chang'an really improved. My cousin already knew Lu Chang'an better than herself at that time. She was close to Lu Chang'an because of Zhu Huntang, so she would naturally investigate and understand Lu Chang'an in all aspects. For people like Lu Chang'an, the better they get to know him, the more they will be attracted to him. How can my cousin be an exception? It's just that I have been stupid enough not to notice this. Think about it, if the relationship is ambiguous, why do I often have supper appointments in the middle of the night? If they weren't extremely close, why would it be Lu Chang'an who sent her back to the hotel? Neither he nor Lu Chang'an had ever had such an experience. That time he even caught his cousin almost having sex with him. Well, it was the time Lu Chang'an said he knocked his cousin unconscious. A sophisticated and intellectual mature woman like my cousin is a good match for Lu Chang'an, right? Tonight, it was like this again, with charming eyes, loving care of my cousin, exquisite makeup in the middle of the night, soft arms hanging on the man's shoulders. Should I turn around and leave quietly at this time? It seems I came at the wrong time. Bai Hui was surprised that she actually laughed when she said this. No, you came at the right time. Lu Chang'an shook his head and waved to Bai Hui. Zhong Huiyu quickly put down her arms. She was not very optimistic about her cousin's thoughts, but as Lu Chang'an said, she hoped that something would happen between Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an. There was a slight embarrassment in her expression. She really didn't want to say farewell to Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an behind her back. As a mature woman, sometimes she just flirts with the opposite sex she has a crush on. If both people were interesting, something might develop, but Lu Chang'an obviously had no such intention. Zhongqing positioned his behavior as more of a tease. Bai Hui walked over involuntarily and looked at her cousin aggrievedly. Zhongqing brushed his hair. He had not yet recovered from the awkward situation. Facing his cousin who had always admired and been close to him, in this situation, Zhongqing could not immediately show his grace and resolve the embarrassing atmosphere. Some men will hug each other in this situation, but I just want you to hug each other and resolve the misunderstanding. Lu Chang'an didn't say much, opened his arms and hugged their soft backs, pressing the two of them tightly together. They are both women with big hearts. With their breasts pressed together, it was inevitable that they would moan and groan several times, but Lu Chang'an's strength kept the two of them close to each other and unable to separate, so they had to hug each other. Lu Chang'an patted their backs again, then turned and walked out of the community. Zhongqing and Bai Hui hugged each other, inevitably continuing to be embarrassed. Zhongqing couldn't help but laugh and explained, "You can tell by looking at Lu Chang'an that it's not what you think. He really wants to fight with me. If there is anything, I won't tell you it's a misunderstanding." In fact, when Lu Chang'an said it was a misunderstanding, Bai Hui's heart had already returned. She couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Even if Lu Chang'an had something to do with his cousin, what does it have to do with him? What I should do is give my blessings. After all, the wealth is not going to anyone else. As long as my cousin is happy. I didn't think about anything, just. Bai Hui muttered, not knowing what to say. If I really have anything to do with him, I would have told him upstairs just now that I have something to do tomorrow and just go back with Lu Chang'an. Zongqing's thinking became active again, and he found the key points and explained them clearly to Bai Hui. Bai Hui nodded vigorously in agreement, indicating that she believed it, because she knew that if it were her, she would definitely do what Zhongqing said. Lu Chang'an came out of Bai Hui's community and walked to the river bank, then followed the scenic road to Du Fujianga, then turned and walked up Jifang West Road. This section of the road often appears in Guarding Jifang West, a collaboration between Posa Street Police Station. The hysterical cry "I am the boss of the entire county" and the sad cries of youth behind it also occur. It's here. This is also the best viewing spot for ordinary citizens when the Orange Island fireworks are in full bloom. More than 100,000 people often gather in a small area, and the crowd density is even far higher than that of the more famous Bund during holidays. Every time at this time, the Posa Street Police Station always feels like it is facing a formidable enemy. Several famous and handsome internet celebrities in the station and the SWAT team will attract more onlookers. They have to wear masks and sunglasses, completely covering their faces. Face performs tasks. Lu Chang'an turned his head and looked at the huge statue of the great man on Orange Island. This prosperous age may not be exactly what you want, but it must be the world you want to see more. Many people often describe him as having a cheating life, but in fact, he has no need to cheat, it's just his strength. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. He seemed to be a cheater, and after cheating, he still had nothing to do, and was often considered a bastard. Sometimes I have to comfort myself that my status is closer to that of an observer. It is normal for people with this status to do nothing. After walking for a while, after passing through Taiping Street, which was originally an old street, it had been modified to lose the flavor of the old street and emphasized that it was an old street. Lu Chang'an actually saw Zuyan. Zhu Ni was sucking people. A voluptuous man with long hair was nestling in Zhu Ni's arms. Zhu Ni took a deep breath on the man's neck. The long-haired man opened his mouth slightly, exhaled gently, and his chest heaved. The waist and hip lines were slightly twisted, and the hands were clenched into small fists, then loosened, and finally grasped Zhu Niao's arm tightly. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. He remembered Zhu Yan's theory about sucking cats regardless of male or female cats. This theory is correct, but if someone only sucks male cats when sucking cats, there is still a problem. Zhu Yan also saw Lu Chang'an, and couldn't help but straighten his body nervously, and pushed the long-haired man next to him. The long-haired man looked at Lu Chang'an along Zhu 11's gaze in surprise, his shoulders suddenly shook, he took a step forward and yelled, "Slut, there are men everywhere on the street, what are you looking at my brother? Get out of here! Slut, slut!" Lu Chang'an pointed at himself in confusion. He had been scolded by countless people for 5,000 years, but this was the first time in his memory that he was called a slut. "What about you? Don't you know if you are a slut? Seeing you walking around with so little clothes in the middle of the night, aren't you getting slutty? Are you feeling itchy?" The long-haired man saw that Zhu Ni was still looking at him. Lu Chang'an started to act in a sharp voice, which really made him angry. "Beat him, or I'll beat you up," Lu Chang'an said to Zhu Yan calmly. Under the surprised gaze of the long-haired man, Zhu Yan lifted him up without hesitation, then threw him down the steps and inserted him straight into the recyclable trash can next to him. Brother, why are you doing this to me, Weavu?" The lid of the trash can fell, and the long-haired man's whimpers disappeared, leaving only him kicking his legs hard in the trash can, making the lid of the trash can bang. Lu Chang'an shook his head gently. Nowadays, many film and television dramas are selling off the sex, which makes some people have unrealistic illusions about some scenes in gay love. In reality, many petty lovers are often just so evil and have no sense of beauty. Walking through the entire bar street, you can see all kinds of luxury cars, anchors dancing like no one else, shouting loudly, and men and women searching for dead fish and looking forward to picking up corpses. They are still setting up stalls to attract business and living hard. People, Lu Chang'an smelled the stench and saw the permeating smoke of human beings. Back in the community, it was quiet around the sycamore tree. Shang Guandandan's electric car was not moved in by her, but placed under the tree. Should she hide her electric car? Thinking about the possibility that Shang Guandandan saw her electric car missing after getting up early, tears streaming down his face, holding the thermos bottle and shaking all over, and then collapsed and fainted and fell to the ground, Lu Chang'an gave up this idea. After all, he was a kind-hearted person. Lu Chang'an walked around the sycamore tree and found that Shang Guandandan had made a huge iron chain and locked her beloved electric car to the sycamore tree. "What are you doing?" Shang Guandandan kicked off her skirt and jumped down from the balcony on the second floor. He hurriedly hugged his electric pony carriage and looked at Lu Chang'an warily. This person came back in the middle of the night. Instead of going home to sleep, he was circling her electric pony carriage. It was really suspicious. More than 2,000 years ago, he tried to get his hands on Shang Guandandan's pony carriage, and he has not changed his behavior at all. "Why aren't you sleeping at this point?" Lu Chang'an asked strangely. "I'm playing the game of palace fighting." Dong Dong and Xiao Ling have already gone to bed obediently. After Shang Guandandan hugged the electric pony carriage, he sat on it. Since the key was not inserted, he could twist around with confidence. On the handlebar, press and turn the buttons on it. Lu Chang'an nodded. Normally, Shang Guandandan's daily routine is very regular, but since Zhu Huntang installed steam for her, Shang Guandandan has gotten into the bad habit of staying up late. In the past, she only watched TV at most late. What things have you not experienced in the palace? You have even deposed the emperor. How can others fight with you, Lu Chang'an found it difficult to understand the type of game she chose. Not only playing, but also staying up late playing. No one knows that I am the real Queen Mother through the TV, Shang Guandandan said with a little pride. He stretched out his hand and did not touch the thermos pot, so he walked to Lu Chang'an and touched his mouth. Let me tell you again, that's a computer. Shang Guandandan didn't care. She said it was a TV, but it was a TV. As for him saying it was a computer, it had nothing to do with her. Since I haven't slept, it's almost done. Let's go to the vegetable market with me later to buy vegetables. Lu Chang'an got on the electric car and prepared to wait here for dawn. We'll go together when Dong Dong gets up. Shang Guandandan got under his arm and squeezed into his arms. His butt was a little in front of the seat of the electric car, and then he put his hands on the back of Lu Chang'an's hands. He shouted, "Didi, let's go out for a ride and come back. Aren't you going to play your palace fighting game? I'll finish the game if you're not at home. I'll play with you when you come back." Shang Guandandan looked back at Lu Chang'an, straightened his chest, rested his head on Lu Chang'an's shoulder, and then rubbed his forehead against Lu Chang'an's neck. He turned his head and looked ahead again, and called out in a measured tone, "Didi, Didi." Lu Chang'an smiled and reached out to hold her soft little body back so that she could sit more stable. It was not strange for the Queen Mother to fall off the electric car. It is said that she was in Viang Palace back then. Just fell out of her pony carriage. If there is a boss who is willing to reward me, he can reward me for my new book. For 1,500 points, you can get 4 monthly passes. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 853. Lu Chang'an discovered that with Shang Guandandan around, there was no need to sound the horn on the electric vehicle, because Shang Guandandan would take the initiative to call Didi when he needed to remind pedestrians in front of him to give way. Under normal circumstances, honking the horn is always offensive, but Shang Guandandan's beeping is not. The vehicles and pedestrians in front of me see a cute long-haired girl sitting in the arms of a boy and beeping involuntarily. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, unable to express any disgust. Shang Guandandan still doesn't know how to ride an electric bike. She is still extremely addicted to virtual driving. She puts her hands on the back of Lu Chang'an's hands and twists her body with the direction of the car, just like those who play racing games in the arcade. Lu Chang'an has always believed that learning to ride an electric bike is very simple. Even Zhu Huntang can learn it. Zhu Huntang has become proficient in driving various types of balance bikes. Learning to ride an electric bike is not as difficult as that. But now he felt that Shang Guandandan might never learn. After she failed once, she never tried to ride by herself again. Every time I see her with an electric scooter, she is either touching the scooter or pushing the scooter, but I have never seen her ride one. Alas, in the court struggle back then, even though he had the intention to give in, he ultimately lost to a queen mother like her, which still makes Lu Chang'an feel unwilling. Dan Dan, besides being cute, what else will you do now? Lu Chang'an felt that Shang Guandandan was too degenerate now, and always wanted to save her and get her out of the state of being confused and doing nothing every day. At least like him, keep a positive attitude towards learning and strive to live a healthy life. What does it mean to be cute? Shang Guan asked confusedly. Just pretending to be cute. What Shang Guandandan is best at is being cute. Whenever she does something stupid and is discovered by Lu Chang'an, she will use this trick. Oh, because I'm weak. I can only survive by pretending to be cute. Shang Guandandan had no choice. To live, one must master some survival skills. Lu Chang'an stopped talking and rode an electric bike around the Mayday Square a few times with the Queen Mother, who was too weak to survive without pretending to be cute, before returning home. The sky was slightly bright, and Zhou Dongdong had woken up lively. She found that the time she woke up every day was fixed, and the time in school was also fixed. Only by going to bed later and getting up earlier could she have time to play more, So now Zhou Dongdong gets up very early every day. Zhou Dongdong rushed under the sycamore tree and found that brother Chang'an and sister Dandan were back. The electric car stopped next to the sycamore tree. Zhou Dongdong climbed up and stood at the pedal position. Lu Chang'an twisted the handle again and the the car circled around the sycamore tree and then drove out of the community. Brother Chang'an, the teacher asked us to go home and look for the 4 great inventions. What are the 4 great inventions? Zhou Dongdong leaned in Shang Guandandan's arms and turned to look at Lu Chang'an. Shang Guandandan leaned in Lu Chang'an's arms and turned to look at him. Dan, do you know what the 4 great inventions are? Lu Chang'an passed the exam and passed the exam. He suspected that teacher Zhou Dongdong meant that he should go home and find the real objects used by the 4 great inventions. This is suitable for elementary school families. Ideas for assigning homework. Otherwise, where can ordinary families find senan and gunpowder now? Shang Guandandan thought for a while and summed up loudly, the 4 great inventions are the electric pony carriage, the electric radiator, the television, the meat buns, the owl, the running beard and, there are small stoves, kettles, and briquettes. Round and round. Stop, Lu Chang'an said quickly. Fortunately, Shang Guandandan once took the initiative to ask Zhou Dongdong to help with homework. She found that she didn't know how to do it, so she didn't try to do this kind of thing. Otherwise, she would really be misleading her children. I'll teach you when I get back, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Dongdong. Okay, Zhou Dongdong still knew very well that sister Dandan was almost the same as her mother when it came to doing homework, and only brother Chang'an knew everything. The 3 people rode an electric car to the vegetable market. The butcher was cutting pork, the vegetable vendor was sprinkling water on the vegetables, and the grocery store was not open yet. Lu Chang'an first bought a few kilograms of beef shank meat, and then bought pigtails, livers, and kidneys from the pork butcher. Give me the pork net oil, Lu Chang'an said to the butcher. He is a person who knows how to live a good life. If he buys a lot, he has to ask for help. Okay, how about I give it all to you, the butcher said cheerfully. Okay, Lu Chang'an had this intention. Reticulum oil is the fascia that fixes internal organs in animals. The pig reticulum Lu wanted is actually just the fascia that fixes pig intestines, and only the fascia at this location is suitable for consumption. Its name is pork net oil, but it is not pure oil, but fat and collagen. It is used to wrap ingredients for grilling or steaming and frying. During the cooking process, it will be blended into the ingredients and add the aroma of the oil. When Lu Chang'an ate the first high-ranking Templar, he used its net oil to wrap dog liver and make a liao that flourished in the Zhou dynasty. The butcher knew that the people who wanted this stuff were all old gourmets, so he recommended a way to eat it to Lu Chang'an, asking him to try wrapping the mutton head meat in net oil and grilling it. Lu Chang'an actually knew this way of eating, and chatted with the butcher for a while. Shang Guandandan kept hanging around, tiptoeing and stretching his head from time to attract the butcher's attention. In this way, Shang Guandandan might come to buy vegetables in the future. There may be some benefits to be gained. The Queen Mother is particularly witty in this regard, while the stupid child is picking up the cardboard left behind when a truck is unloading, because in addition to scrap metal that can be sold for money, the old man also collects cardboard. Zhou Dongdong heard that his birthday is about to happen. I plan to earn some money to give gifts to my mother, and thank my mother for giving birth to me, and for making me so smart and brave. It was so difficult to make money. Zhou Dongdong bent over and held his knees with his palms. He didn't know how long it would take before the old man would give him money. Zhou Dongdong, do you eat snakes? Lu Chang'an saw the snake stall next to him, and the stall owner was handling cauliflower snakes. He wanted to eat snakes, so he asked Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong quickly ran away with the cardboard in his arms, climbed onto the electric car, and twisted the handle. Unfortunately, Lu Chang'an had already taken out the car key, so Zhou Dongdong had no choice but to pick up the cardboard on the pedal and run away. He held the cardboard in front of him and looked this way to see if Brother Chang'an really wanted to buy a snake. Zhou Dongdong still remembers that Chang'an's brother bought a snake last year and was poisoned after eating it. Fortunately, Zhou Dongdong fed him the antidote. There is no such red antidote at home anymore. Dongdong, don't be afraid, all snakes are afraid of me. Shang Guandandan came to the snake stall nearby, put his hands on his hips, and stared majestically at the cauliflower snake in the net bag. Seeing this little girl who often came to the vegetable market, but only bought a few yuan or something every time, the stall owner heard it funny. He happened to have a snake in his hand, so he reached out and shook it, trying to scare Shang Guandandan. As a result, the cauliflower snake, which had been still twisting and turning just now, suddenly twisted sharply, threw its lower body up, tightly wrapped around the stall owner's arm, and refused to move forward no matter what. "Hey, what's going on?" The stall owner felt confused, but he didn't try to scare Shang Guandandan and kill the snake. Only then did Zhou Dongdong stagger over with the cardboard in his arms, and quickly said to Lu Chang'an, I eat snakes. Snakes are not human beings' best friends, so you can eat them." Lu Chang'an bought a few snakes, including ginger spicy snake, green pepper braised snake, garlic flavored boneless snake, snake blood clay pot rice, and onion flavored braised snake. They were all his specialty dishes. As for what Zhou Dongdong said about what is a good friend of mankind and what is not a good friend of mankind, there is no need to worry about right or wrong in the opinions of first-grade children. It can be said that human beings are born with a focus on appearance. The cauliflower snake is just not very good looking, so it has been deprived of its status as a good friend of mankind. It is obvious that it is a beneficial or important person protected by the state. It is included in the list of terrestrial wild animals of economic and scientific research value, but humans are not included in this list. After buying groceries, Lu Chang'an took them home on an electric car. Zhou Dongdong took the cardboard and put it under the stairs, folded it on Lu Xin's doghouse and put it there. Lu Chang'an processed and marinated the snake. Instead of eating the snake in the morning, he planned to wrap the beef shank in pork net oil and grill it. Beef hind shank meat is lean and chewy, but has a slightly lower fat content. It is wrapped in pork net oil, which just makes up for this. The fat is integrated into the meat, retaining the characteristics of beef, but adding more aroma and color. "Come on. Let's have roast beef in the morning." Zhou Shuling went downstairs and found nothing to do, so she rubbed her hands and sat next to Lu Chang'an to watch him roast beef. Even now, Zhou Shuling still laments the luxury of life from time to time. In the past, she probably would not have dared to think about roasting several kilograms of expensive beef for breakfast in the morning. Zhou Shuling held her cheeks with her palms and looked at Lu Chang'an with a smile. He was so kind. What are the 4 great inventions of ancient times? Lu Chang'an tilted his head and glanced at her. Another stupid mother came to her door looking for an exam school. Zhou Shuling was a little flustered. Every time Lu Chang'an tested her like this, Zhou Shuling felt as nervous as when she was in school and was called on by the teacher but couldn't answer the question. She quickly calmed down, and such common sense questions still couldn't trouble her. Firecrackers, paper making, compass, rice. Big rice? As expected of Zhou Dongdong's mother, Lu Chang'an nodded and said nothing. Zhou Dongdong was not listening to the answer to the question anyway. As for Zhou Shuling's opinion, the 4 great inventions are what they are, and there is nothing to correct. She was not scolded. It seemed that even if she was wrong, it was not too outrageous. Zhou Shuling laughed twice, stood up, and said softly, "I'll get you a towel. There's charcoal ash on her face." At this time, Zhu Huntang came over with a look of displeasure. Because there were classes in the first and second periods this morning, Lu Chang'an had already informed Zhu Huntang's assistant Jin Xiaomei and asked her to remind Zhu Huntang to come to school with Lu Chang'an today. Lu Chang'an must supervise Zhu Huntang in this way. This sheep can skip school for any reason and is more willful than Lu Chang'an before. Xiaotang, let me ask you, what are the four great inventions in this world? Lu Chang'an did not intend to ask Zhu Huntang, but Shang Guandandan decided to give her a test to show the Queen Mother's concern for the learning progress of the younger generation. The four great inventions in this world. Zhu Huntang's lips curled up slightly. Who doesn't know such a question? Answer immediately: mobile phone, internet, beauty camera, and me. Lu Chang'an glanced at the remaining pork net oil. Is it enough to wrap Zhu Huntang? Every night from 8 to 12 o'clock, the reward of 1,500 points is for monthly tickets. The boss who is interested can support my new book My Mom Takes Me to Cultivation to Immortality. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 854. Zhu Huntang didn't dress up carefully today. She just wore a black goddess palace-style outfit according to the matching recommended by AI. Zhu Huntang has a dedicated app when she buys clothes, skirts, socks, shoes, etc. Someone will take photos and enter the clothes into the backend system. Zhu Huntang can use this app to input her mood, schedule, preferred themes, etc. and then the app will recommend a complete set of combinations for her to choose from. The previews of these matching effects are all how Zhu Huntang will look when worn on her body, and they can be adjusted at will. Generally speaking, the preview effect chosen by Zhu Huntang will satisfy her in the end. Lu Chang'an looked at the golden crown on her head and a fairy wand inlaid with large diamonds in her hand. His tone became gentle and expectant. Little Yang, when will you return to Taiwan? I don't want to see you in Juncha is you. Why should I go back to Taiwan if I have nothing to do? Zhu Huntang felt confused. The water flows into the sea, and people go to powerful places. Don't try to drive me away. You promised my mother to take care of me. I want to play with you. I am here and I won't go anywhere. Lu Chang'an continued to roast beef. Although there was no blood relationship or DNA inheritance certification, there were some things that were really mysterious, and Zhu Huntang was a little attached to him. Ever since she discovered his existence, there seemed to be some signs of this. In addition to her interest in extraordinary creatures, she often just liked to be around him. Even if it was just making noises for nothing, it had nothing to do with her curiosity about extraordinary creatures. Yan Qingcheng proposed that I join the party. I thought about it and agreed. Zhu Huntang felt that this matter was important and needed to be reported to Lu Chang'an. Professor Lu Jianxi was once a glorious party member, but Lu Chang'an was not prepared to consider this matter during high school and college. Hearing that Zhu Huntang wanted to join the party, Lu Chang'an felt as if he heard an innocent and lively little animal talking about joining the party while eating grass. I'm just reminding you that joining the party is not easy. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Of course, Yan Qingcheng proposed to her with preparation and understanding. Yan Qingcheng was not like Zhu Huntang who thought about it all at once. Okay, but there has never been a precedent of the last one in the whole grade applying to join the party. To join the party, you must first be outstanding and advanced, and you can serve as a role model, right? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang. After you join the party, you will lead the whole class to wear like a fairy boy, holding a fairy stick and dreaming every day. Who said that only academic performance represents excellence? Academic performance is very good, but there are not many people who do bad things. I only need to donate money to the school, sponsor scholarships for poor students, and find projects and cooperation for Hunan University in the world to improve Hunan University the degree of internationalization. I am outstanding. Zhu Huntang remembered what Lu Chang'an had told her before about how to get an academician title and use those methods to enhance his outstanding image. Lu Chang'an shook his head and let her go. No matter what, Zhu Huntang was always particularly talented at holding thighs. Zhu Huntang will stand on whichever side is stronger. With her brain, she can actually see the situation clearly. In fact, as long as she does not deceive herself and others, and puts down those inexplicable arrogance and prejudice. It's simply a dream, intoxicated in self-deceiving arrogance and unable to extricate itself. It just seems particularly ridiculous. Seeing that Lu Chang'an had nothing to say, Zhu Huntang stood beside him proudly, holding the tie on his skirt and spanking him. Lu Chang'an ignored Zhu Huntang's provocation. She finally showed a little bit of wit, which was very rare. I want to join the Zhu Fenglai sword section. Shang Guandandan, who had been listening for a while but didn't quite understand, also made a decision. Hearing Shang Guandandan's offer to join the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect, Lu Chang'an was very pleased and nodded, yes, but you can't serve as godmother. This sect does not have this position. From now on, you will be the deputy sect leader. How about it? Okay, but my pocket money needs to be increased to 100 yuan a day. Shang Guandandan took the opportunity to make a request, but the Queen Mother couldn't afford to do it early, so she certainly had a big plan. 80. 90. 80. 80 is 80. Shang Guandandan touched her owl. Her mental expectation was only 80, but if she asked for only 80, Lu Chang'an would definitely say 70. Why did Dandan become the deputy sect master as soon as he entered the door? Zhu Huntang was very angry. This is not fair. I want to be the deputy sect master too. Zhu Huntang remembered that when he first joined, he was just an ordinary gang member, not even an elite gang member. He was even expelled by Lu Chang'an and Qin Yanan one after another. After going through an arduous and insidious power struggle, Zhu Huntang finally became the protector of the saint. On the same level as Lu Sin. You are the weakest in this section. Can you beat Lu Sin? Lu Chang'an said, pointing at Lu Sin, who was raising one leg and spreading fertilizer in the corner. Zhu Huntang observed Lu Sin's physique and had to shake his head. Lu Sin was no longer what he used to be. He was a completely different person than he was under Zhu Huntang back then. Zhou Dongdong can eat 3 bowls in one meal. Can you compare? Lu Chang'an pointed at Zhou Dongdong, who was staring at the roast beef attentively, and said. Zhu Huntang was extremely frustrated. Everyone in the sect was indeed a strong person, and Zhu Huntang was also very powerful. She was a fairy, but Lu Chang'an did not take her fairy status seriously. When you successfully join the party, I will let you become another saint, Lu Chang'an said reluctantly. Zhu Huntang suddenly became excited, stopped slapping Lu Chang'an with the belt, and lay on Lu Chang'an's back like a baby. Grandpa, I knew you still loved me. Zhou Dongdong, when will you join the young pioneers? Lu Chang'an asked, pushing Zhu Huntang away with his backhand. Shang Guandandan waved and asked Zhu Huntang, who was pushed away by Lu Chang'an, to come to her and act coquettishly. Zhou Dongdong came back to his senses in surprise. I don't want to join the young pioneers. The young pioneers have to tie a red scarf around their necks. When my mother caught me, she grabbed the red scarf at once and I couldn't even run away. This reason is very good and fits her temperament very well. Lu Chang'an nodded. It was just that he suddenly discovered that the 2 saints from the Zhu Fenglai sword sect were both ranked last in the grade. But, Lu Chang'an couldn't help but feel a little worried. Actually, it's nothing. Anyway, the Zhu Fenglai sword sect will never have no successors. Many powerful sects often have only a few people. For example, he heard that there is a Tiandao sect, which has fewer people than the Zhu Fenglai sword section. The sect leader is Tan Taijing. Junior brothers and sisters, Wang Xiaoshu and Nan Ji, and a second-generation disciple, Mr. Wang, are gone. Relatively speaking, Zhu Fenglai sword sect is quite prosperous. Didn't they recruit Li Hongfang again recently? It is actually very easy for Lu Chang'an to expand his power, but he has a penchant for nepotism. Without nepotism, it is difficult to enter the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect. If it matters, a dog can get in. He kind of hopes that Zhou Dongdong can join the young pioneers, so that it will be more convenient for Zhou Shuling to catch Zhou Dongdong to suppress him in the future. However, Zhou Dongdong's grades are a bit too bad. I wonder if he has the grades to join the young pioneers in elementary school now. The request, if it is not possible, let Qin Peng write a letter of introduction to introduce Zhou Dongdong to join the young pioneers. Of course, he did not mean to disrespect the red scarf, which was dyed with the blood of revolutionary martyrs. After Zhou Dongdong joins, although he will be easily caught because the red scarf is tied around his neck, he will eventually learn some excellent ideas. In the morning, after finishing Lu Chang'an's roast beef and Zhou Shuling's new tom yum kung soup, everyone went to school, went to work, and played cards. With 80 yuan in his pocket, Shang Guandandan had more confidence. When playing cards in the community, no one would lose 80 yuan in a day except under extremely unlucky circumstances. In other words, Shang Guandandan could play cards every day and still save a lot of money. From now on, the poor and frugal queen mother would also become rich. Because Zhou Shuling was going to Hexi to look at a store, she asked Zhu Huntang to give her a ride. Lu Chang'an thought it was still early, so he sent Zhou Dongdong to school first and then went to Hexi. Every night from 8 to 12 o'clock, the reward of 1,500 points is for monthly tickets. The boss who is interested can support my new book My Mom Takes Me to Cultivation to Immortality. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 855. Because she was considering joining the party today, Zhu Huntang decided to keep a low profile for the time being. She did not take the hunky L5, nor did she choose the Rolls-Royce series of cars that have been used frequently recently. Instead, she used an old car delivered last year, customized stretched Maybach S680 Pullman. The wheelbase of this car was 4.5 meters long, but it only had 4 seats, and the middle was completely cut off. So Zhu Huntang accompanied Lu Chang'an, Zhou Dongdong, and Zhou Shuling in the nanny car at the back, which was just in time to ask Zhou Dongdong, showing off her fairy wand. Dongdong, do you want to be a fairy with me? Sitting down in the living room of the nanny's car, Zhu Huntang pressed the button, and a velvet-covered box popped out, containing 6 fairy wands. There was still an empty spot. Lu Chang'an looked at the fairy stick held by Zhu Huntang. It seemed that she had customized 7 fairy sticks and was preparing to summon Balabala. Okay, before Zhou Dongdong could speak, Zhou Shuling raised her hands and clapped to express her support. Lu Chang'an glanced at her. Mother. Can I also be a fairy? Zhou Dongdong looked at the little girl carrying a skull bag in the mirror, and raised his hand to hold down his hair. Fairies all have very long hair, but as long as Zhou Dongdong's hair grows longer, her mother will cut it off, because her mother says that the hair will absorb nutrients from the head and the child will not be smart. It doesn't matter if you are not a fairy, but if you are not a smart child, your mother will be very worried and will say that Zhou Dongdong is stupid. What will you do when you grow up? What will you do when your mother gets old? Zhou Dongdong also tried hard to become a smart kid, but no one ever praised Zhou Dongdong for being smart, so Zhou Dongdong had to always say that he was smart and brave. A smart kid doesn't have to worry about her being stupid, and a brave kid doesn't. If you will be bullied, your mother can rest assured. What if I lose my wit and bravery after becoming a fairy? Zhou Dongdong said with some worry. Although Sister Xiaotang is a fairy, she never likes to study. Every time Brother Chang'an asks her to study, she falls on the ground. Rolling around, he doesn't look smart and brave at all. Zhu Huntang frowned slightly. What does this mean? Lu Chang'an couldn't help laughing, but immediately became expressionless. What's so funny about this? It doesn't matter. As long as you go to school every day and study hard, you will still be a smart and brave child and a smart and brave fairy. It was obvious that Zhou Dongdong was very interested in the fairy stick, and Zhou Shuling comforted and tempted her. So Zhou Dongdong touched the fairy wand in the drawer and looked at Zhu Huntang expectantly. We each have one, and I will teach you the spell, Zhu Huntang said openly, not caring that Zhou Dongdong might have hinted that she was not smart and brave. After all, Zhou Dongdong is now a saint in the section. It is natural for a saint to discipline her subordinates. After she becomes a saint, she will first scold Lu Xin for being so arrogant with her legs crossed to urinate, and then compare with Zhou Dongdong. Let's see who is more witty and brave. Zhou Dongdong picked up a pink fairy stick, raised it high and shook it a few times. She suddenly felt that she had magic power. In addition to being the child Sun Wukong who had not grown up, she was also a child fairy who had not grown up. Okay, Zhou Dongdong doesn't like to recite poems, but he will definitely work hard to recite mantras. There is dawn hanging over Dongshan. Zhu Huntang read. Yu Li Men announced in Dongsan. Zhou Dongdong also shouted. Zhu Huntang froze after reciting a sentence, then calmly took out his mobile phone, looked at the mantra, and did not intend to memorize it anymore. He looked at the mobile phone and recited, like Buddha bone glass. Fish fugu li yulai. Thousands of layers of clouds. Father Yun Qian Kong. After the two recited the incantation, Zhu Huntang quietly pressed the icon on the mobile app, and mist was sprayed from the roof of the car, filling the car. Colorful lights flashed, making the environment in the car look like the old version of Journey to the West, the same scene as in. This is the effect of the spell, Zhu Huntang was proud. Wow, Sister Xiaotang, your magic power is so strong, I haven't learned it yet. Zhou Dongdong enviously waved the fairy wand in his hand. Zhu Huntang waved his hand and took out another fairy stick. Dongdong, you can take another one and give it to your friends in school. Our fairy team needs to grow. Zhu Huntang decided to give one to Shang Guandandan. You must know that even Zhu Huntang has to admit that Shang Guandandan has stronger magic power. Zhou Shuling also took one and shook it in her hand. She didn't want it, but she could play with it. Where did you learn your spell? Lu Chang'an pointed to his side and asked the bouncing Zhu Huntang to sit down. Do you want me to teach you? Zhu Huntang took out another fairy stick. No, just tell me where you learned the spell. Then you hold the fairy wand, or I won't tell you. Lu Chang'an touched the car window and wondered which one was harder, the bulletproof glass window or Zhu Huntang's head. He still took it and touched the diamond on the fairy wand. The naked eye could only tell that it was a diamond, but it was impossible to tell whether it was a natural diamond or an artificial diamond. However, artificial diamonds and imitation diamonds are not the same concept. Artificial diamonds are diamonds, but imitation diamonds are fakes. Jin Xiaomei and I are together. Zhu Huntang showed Lu Chang'an his cell phone. It was a text message sent to her by Jin Xiaomei. It contained the spell that Zhu Huntang recited just now. Where did Jin Xiaomei learn it? Lu Chang'an asked inquiringly. Zhu Huntang felt something was wrong, because Lu Chang'an had paid a huge price. He would rather hold the fairy stick that symbolized the fairy to know the answer, but he still dug deeper so persistently. This spell, does it really have magic power? Zhu Huntang looked at Zhou Dongdong who was shouting and chanting, and asked in a low voice. Oh, this is a spell that was circulated in ancient times to kill dragons, Lu Chang'an said. He had a headache when he heard the spell. It was not that the spell was actually effective, but that Zhu Huntang was reciting it. If this were in the feudal era, when he was still the emperor, even if the prince below was chanting the dragon-slaying spell, he would depose the prince and wash away the imperial city with blood. Lu Che did this back then. Then I won't read it anymore. I quite like dragons, Zhu Huntang said, leaning on Lu Chang'an's shoulder. Oh? Why, could it be that the black-hearted cotton-padded jacket finally had the holes patched up and stopped leaking? Because I am a fairy, the best mount for me to travel the universe in the future is a dragon. I want to ride a dragon, and I want to hold its horns. Didn't you notice? Dragons have horns, so they can be used as mounts for fairies. Zhu Huntang. He climbed onto the sofa, stood behind Lu Chang'an, grabbed a handful of hair with one hand, and demonstrated, "That's it?" Lu Chang'an smiled and hugged Zhu Huntang with his backhand, and said to Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong, "She and I will go inside to discuss something." "No. What are you going to do, old man?" Zhu Huntang panicked inexplicably. She just scratched his hair. Why did he suddenly go crazy? Normally in this situation, he would not be so vicious at all. Lu Chang'an carried Zhu Huntang into the bedroom of the nanny car. As a nanny car, the best thing about this luxury car is its sound insulation and anti-bumping. He beat Zhu Huntang inside, crying for his father and mother, knocking on the walls and windows, but there was no sound outside. What movement? Except for the last time he flew with the sheep, he rarely beat her, but she provoked him when she had nothing to do. She could give him a beating at the right time. Anyway, this is how to educate children. Beating her every now and then is good for her physical and mental health and can cultivate some good qualities. The ability to withstand blows and setbacks. Lu Chang'an came out after a while, and Zhou Dongdong was still practicing the spell, but she couldn't make out what she was saying randomly. It was basically just barking. "Really, you dare to hit anyone?" Zhou Shuling was a little helpless, but also admired her. She remembered that Lu Chang'an came back from Jinling to help her out. He also beat Go Shanhai because Go Shanhai had wronged her and her mother. Feeling that no matter who bullied him or Zhou Dongdong, he would always come forward. Zhou Shuling pinched a grape that was as clear as crystal and fed it to Lu Chang'an. "It's so sweet," Lu Chang'an praised, took another bunch and put it in Zhou Dongdong's school bag, asking her to take it to school to eat with Songdazi. "Brother Chang'an, can you recite spells?" "I'll teach you," Zhou Dongdong said, waving the fairy stick. "No, you have learned how to slay dragons." Lu Chang'an picked up the fairy stick that he had dropped and put it back in the box. It seems that Jin Xiaomei had to ask her how she learned this spell. "Okay, I'll catch a dragon for you to eat." Zhou Dongdong knew that Brother Chang'an had eaten the 12 zodiac animals, so he must know how to eat dragons. Lu Chang'an took out the grapes that she had just put into her school bag and started eating. "The dragon is the totem of our nation and a sacred symbol. It cannot be eaten. We are all descendants of the dragon." Zhou Shuling stroked Zhou Dongdong's hair and said. Still warm to her little mother, Lu Chang'an also touched Zhou Shuling's hair. The car quickly arrived at Zhou Dongdong's school. Lu Chang'an watched Zhou Dongdong run to the school gate, where Songdazi was waiting for her. Zhou Dongdong took a fairy stick and gave it to Songdazi, and then the two held hands. Went in a jiffy. When the car drove to Hexi, after Zhou Shuling got off the car at the former site of the textile factory, Zhu Huntang hummed and walked out of the nanny car and walked to the Maybach who had been following behind. Finding that Lu Chang'an had not gotten out of the nanny car, Zhu Huntang ran back again, pulled Lu Chang'an out with a cold expression and sat with her in the car behind. Zhu Huntang changed cars, and the driving order of the vehicles was changed again. The nanny car followed behind again. Lu Chang'an regretted not taking some grapes from the nanny car. Fortunately, there was orange juice in the refrigerator of this car, so he took it. "Start drinking one bottle. I won't listen to you today unless you take me to catch exotic beasts," Zhu Huntang said angrily. "If I don't listen to you, I will skip class and become a free fairy. I will never be wronged again." Several. Lu Chang'an wanted to laugh when he heard it. He spoke very fast when he was angry, and his accent came out. Okay, for the sake of orange juice, Lu Chang'an didn't want to continue to be angry with her. Zhu Huntang didn't expect that he would agree so readily. He folded his hands in front of his chest and turned around. He observed Lu Chang'an's expression to make sure that he was not just fooling her. He snorted twice, pursed his lips, loosened his hands, and hugged her. Lu Chang'an's arm rested on his shoulder. Why did the fairy always like to play with the bad old man so much and be so clingy to him? "Hello everyone, My first love is as bright as a summer flower. What you are reading is the sequel to chapter 164 of the completed novel I'm Really Immortal. There are many people who will start a new book with the sequel. Please don't laugh at the author.